Hello, hello, welcome, welcome. My name is Preston Jacobs. Sorry for the 2 minute delay on the beginning here. I was just things were running a little slow, and so I decided to do a reboot. Um, so I want to talk about tonight the Patchface prophecies, and you know, for a long time, I felt these were kind of uh, I'd not really wanted to tackle these because they seemed very ambiguous and a lot of things could fit into them. And I've sort of changed my mind on the Patchface prophecies. I actually think the Patchface prophecies, having gone through them again, with a sort of feeling that you have to put them in the context of what George knew about the story at that time, what he was writing about at that time. Once you put that once you consider that, um, the patch face prophecies are actually pretty simple. Uh, um, if you kind of go in with the idea, like, don't overthink it, don't fucking overthink it, like this is this is what George was writing about at the time. This is what he was thinking about at the time. Just go with it. It doesn't have to be super precise. And when we go through these, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Because some of the past phase prophecies um, are, they when you look at them in isolation, they're very confusing. You're like, so many things could apply to that. But then once you look at it in context of the chapter, and then you look at it in the context of where George was in the story and the other things going on in the story, and what he's writing about, then it kind of all then it kind of all makes sense. So let's get into it. The strangely one of the best places to have every Patchface prophecy is there's a YouTube video called the Interesting Nerd Club that has a video where he's like every Patchface prophecy in order, which makes things easy and visually interesting. So I'm just going to borrow the visuals of his of his um, of his thing. If I can get it over. Oh, that's it. I was like, why isn't it over? Oh, right. My screen froze. All right. This is what we can do to fix that. We can just go. There we go. Back. There it is. Clearing the screen here. So this is our boy Interesting Nerd Club's like YouTube video on just listing them all. So the first Patchface prophecy that happens. Now remember, Patchface is introduced in our story as in the prologue of A Clash of Kings, one of the greatest chapters that George writes in A Song of Ice and Fire. But keep in mind, like, what else is also going on in that chapter? There's a comet in the sky. There is Melisandre, and there's Patchface, and all of them. And on top of that, we've got fucking Shireen's dreams. Okay, so we get this onslaught in the first chapter of A Clash of Kings with this idea of there's a whole bunch of fucking prophetic goddamn shit going on. This is creepy. Okay, we're hitting it from literally four different angles here. What does the comet mean? What do Melisandre's visions mean? What do Shireen's dreams mean? And what do Patchface's prophecies mean? All at once. So now let's I have to say, Patchface's prophecies in A Clash of Kings are pretty straightforward. I admit that like when you get to A Dance with Dragons, those ones are weirder and harder. But the ones in A Clash of Kings and the ones in A Storm of Swords are straight up easy. But the ones in so when you look at that, you say, okay, The Clash of Kings are pretty easy. A Storm of Swords is very easy. And then A Dance with Dragons are a little hard. They kind of correspond with George's writing speed. Like A Storm of Swords, he's just blurting it out fast. And if you think about the easiest prophecies in the story, it's the High Heart prophecies, where you're just like, anybody would get those. It's the same here. Like, they're not that difficult in A Clash of Kings. So obviously you come in here and the first thing is prologue of Clash of Kings. The fool turned his patched and piebald head to watch Pylos climb the steep iron steps to the rookery. His bells rang with emotion. Under the sea, the birds have scales for feathers, he said. Clang-a-lang. I know, oh. Now, obviously, you're in this, he's literally saying, like, under the sea, like, instead of birds, we have fish. But when you take it to the next obvious meaning, he's talking about fucking dragons. Like, and we're all like, any reader would come to that conclusion that we're talking about dragons. The dragons have just hatched in the last chapter of A Game of Thrones. The comet appears in the sky. Shireen is having motherfucking dragon dreams. They're like, it's obvious. Like, this is obvious that he's saying that there's dragons. That now some people say, well, what does under the sea mean? Under the sea, it doesn't mean anything. It means like in the flames. Like, under the sea means nothing. Some people are like, oh, under the sea means like death or something. No, just like, don't overthink it. It's just, he's just saying like in the flames, like in my visions or whatever. Like, in my visions, the birds have scales for feather. Pretty obviously obviously dragons. So that's all fine. Okay, so let's go on a little bit and get to the second one. Okay. It's always summer under the sea, he intoned. The merwives wear ninnymones in their hair and weave gowns of silver seaweed. I know, oh. Now, this one is, at the time of reading, if you were just reading A Clash of Kings, you probably wouldn't get this one. But if we're taking, and you got to remember, he's like Clash of Kings in the context of what of A Clash of Kings. What does this mean? Well, in this chapter, Cresson is dealing with the Strangler, right? And A Clash of Kings ends with the big surprise that Dantos hands Sansa this hairnet with the Strangler in it. So in the context of A Clash of Kings, and only A Clash of Kings, we don't even have to get into like what George was thinking about the Purple Wedding. Like, he clearly knows about the Purple Wedding here in A Clash of Kings. Like, it begins with the Strangler and ends with the Strangler. Like, that's how the book begins and ends. So, and so when we're talking about like always summer, like Catelyn specifically talks about like the summer children and when she meets all of when she meets the Renly and all of his crew, which is in the context of the Stannis story. Like, so, Catelyn is the Stannis story. For a lot of A Clash of Kings. So what does it mean to be always summer? I mean, some people get into like, oh, the prophecies of Azor Ahai and all that. And like, all the Azor Ahai prophecy. Yes. It's meant like the plunging of swords and stuff like that. Like, yeah, that comes up, but like, all the salt and smoke and stuff like that, that's from A Storm of Swords. So like, don't worry about Azor Ahai so much. Okay. Like, she's just saying that like, we're in the context of the people that think it's always summer, the people that believe the fantasy of knighthood and chivalry and all of that like bullshit. Which is Sansa. Like Sansa is that too. Like she believes that in the context of the mind of the people that believe like always summer, like, which is Catelyn specifically tells us in A Clash of Kings what always summer means. The summer children. So when they say like merwives, the merwives wear nenemones in their hair. Nenemone, it sounds like if you look at the word anemone, like the sea anemone, which is this like underwater creature that like paralyzes fish with its tentacles. We're talking about the strangler. We're talking about the poison in Sansa's hair. Now, some people like I say, some people will be like, "But what is the weave gowns of silver seaweed?" Don't fucking worry about it. Like it's not precise, but clearly we're talking about the purple wedding here. We're talking about the strangler, which is in this chapter, and the ending of the story, of delivering the strangler to Sansa. Like clearly, this is what's going on here in the context of A Clash of Kings, and that's the thing is once you like keep it surrounding on like what does George know at the time? What is the story saying at the time? Okay, we're in the middle of like the strangler and like it ends with the strangler. Like so this is what it is. It's clearly purple wedding. So going on to number 3. Under the sea, it snows up. And the rain is dry as bone. I know. Now, a lot of people say, okay, well, later on, like in A Storm of Swords, Stannis looks into the flames and he sees like ashes rising and dropping. And later on, like, what about the rains? And the rain could be the rains of Castamere, because we could be talking about, no, just like stop all that. Okay, Rains of Castamere is introduced in A Storm of Swords. George probably didn't have the Rains of Castamere on his mind when he's writing this. Now, is it about Ash? Probably. Like he's talking about dragons and in this chapter and death and burning, and you're just like, or like, it is probably Ash that she's talking about, like Ash coming up, or just, when snow is very cold, it's dry as well. So the rain is dry as bone. Also, he uses like bones, like dry as bone. Like you're getting this idea of death in there too. Like, that everything is dry. Also keep in mind that at the time here, Dany is walking through the Red Waste. You can think about the everything being dry. But again, you're dealing with the dragons when you go over to Dany. So this one, like you're like, what does this all mean? It doesn't mean much. It just means like, oh, we're talking about ash and death and really cold snow and dragons. Like, what is the exact meaning? Oh, let's get into, no, like there's not this like idea of Azor Ahai or Rains of Castamere or any of that shit. Like just it's pretty simple and straightforward here. Like it's just like ash and death and things being dry. You could maybe say it's like you're supposed to be thinking about the Red Waste or something like that, because like in there the rivers are dry as bone. In fact, I think George uses the same term, dry as bone. Is it just dry as a bone or dry as a bone? Yeah. There's something. It's just Dany. Dry. Dry as a dead man's bones. Like he's writing that at the same time, contemporarily, So, it's more likely he's just thinking about that. But he's also just giving, George is also just giving general atmosphere here, but like don't overthink it. Don't go into the future too much for stuff that like isn't there. He's definitely not thinking about Weird Azor Ahai stuff. Now here, like clever bird, clever man, clever fool, said Patchface. Oh, clever fool. Like in this context, he's clearly talking about Crescent. Like he's putting it forward saying, oh, that's a clever bird. You're a clever man. I'm a clever fool. But no, he's saying to Crescent, you're a fool. What you're trying to do going against Melisandre, like you're gonna die doing this. That's pretty straightforward, solved in the chapter. If you want to go any further and say, oh, it represents like Jingle Bell at the Red Wedding. No, it definitely does not, because like in A Clash of Kings, like Aegon is a different character. Aegon Frey is a different character and is retconned into Jingle Bell. So like at the time, like George at the time knows the Red Wedding is happening, but he doesn't have the specifics down. He doesn't think about Jingle Bell and stuff like that. And the Reigns of Castamere playing and all the details. He just knows like that there's going to be a Red Wedding, in a very broad sense. So yeah, he's just talking about Crescent here, nothing more. So then we go on. The shadows come to dance, my lord, dance, my lord, dance, my lord. The shadows come to dance, my lord, dance. The shadows come to stay, my lord, stay, my lord, stay, my lord. I mean, obviously, this is like the dealing with the shadow babies and stuff like that. Now, some people say, or you're supposed to think about that, obviously, which is again contained in A Clash of Kings. Like, there's no big riddle out of this. I mean, some people later might be like, oh, but what about like the stone beast breathing fire, like breathing shadow and stuff like that? You're just no, just like simmer down. It's definitely the shadow babies, or like dragons flying over, casting a shadow. Is it a metaphor for the others as well? Sure, probably. But I mean, the others are I mean, they're not forgotten at Clash of Kings, but there's definitely a little defocus on them. But what's the idea of the stay, my lord? Like, do the shadow babies stick around? Like, where are these shadows? I mean, it's an interesting thing to think about. Like, did he mean that Stannis' shadow is going to linger, and is somehow floating around the realm or things like that? Also, let's remember that in the original prologue, they were going to deal with Crescent and glass candles and bringing your souls around and things like that, and the immortality of a glass candle. So there might be some lingering things from that, but for the most part, it's probably just the fucking shadow babies. And the stay, my lord, like, don't read it into it too much. It's just saying that like the evil is gonna stay and the darkness is coming and stuff like that. All right, let's see here. And then we get to under the sea, you fall up. I know. In this case, I would just say, like, what is falling up? I mean, if you're falling up, you're flying, like, and that's it. Like, I don't think there's much else to it here. Bran flies, Dany flies. It's probably as simple as that. Like, Bran flying in his visions, Dany flying on a dragon. And that's probably just it. I mean, a lot of people, what else could it be? Because there's so much falling and flying in the Bran story that you just kind of think about that. And what's next? Oh. Here we eat fish. Under the sea, the fish eat us. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. We know that like if you sleep with the fishes, you're dead. So he's saying in his visions, the fish are eating people. Like we're getting eaten. We're all dead. In his visions, we're dead. That's, I think, pretty clear. Here and now, we eat the fish. In my visions, the fish are eating us. We're dead. I don't think there's anything spectacularly difficult about that. And then, under the sea, no one wears hats. I know. We're in the midst of the War of the Five Kings. They're talking about the War of the Five Kings. I think this is pretty clearly that no one in the War of the Five Kings is going to be wearing a crown. Like they're all dead. In my visions, everyone's dead. No one wears a crown. I think is pretty much, what we're looking at there. And so it's pretty interesting that let's say so far, the shadows staying with the prologue, because so many are in the prologue. I mean, the shadows staying is a little curious. And the seaweed dress, or something is a little curious, or rain as dry as bone. I mean, there's aspects that are curious, but I don't think there's much argument with the general feeling that you're getting when you read it for the first time, or the second time. I mean, obviously, if you're reading A Clash of Kings for the first time, you're not going to guess the Red Wedding. But for the most part, everything else is at least contained in A Clash of Kings, and often contained in that chapter. So then we can move on to a Davos 1, and Patchface says, under the sea, smoke rises and bubbles, and flames turn green and blue and black. I know. Oh. Now, I've read a lot of different people's opinions about, what the colors mean, green and blue and black. Oh gosh, maybe the colors, Dany's dragons are green, white, and black. Maybe the white one is going to be undead and he's going to be blue. Maybe the blue is the blue eyes of the other. And smoke rising in the bubbles, could that be smoke and salt and stuff like that? No. Smoke and salt comes in a Storm of Swords. No. Did George know at this point that he was going to have an undead dragon that was going to be blue? I doubtful. So at this point, you're just don't overthink it. When fire burns really hot, it burns blue. And black, you could just be well, that's the Blackwater or whatever. It's not that complicated. Don't overthink it. The thing with colors is colors can mean anything. But it's very clear that when you're saying that the flames are burning green, that we're talking about the fucking Blackwater here. Okay? Again, it's contained in A Clash of Kings, where, we start the story at one place, we end the story in the other. We start the story with him saying, with the Strangler, and him giving a prophecy about the poison in the hair, and we end the story with her receiving the hairnet. It's the same here. I mean, you begin the story with him talking about the Blackwater to Davos, and you end the story with the wildfire and the Blackwater. It's like don't overthink it with these colors. Because if you start doing that, you start going down these roads of it represents the dragon's colors and shit like that. You're just anything. The colors can mean anything. Like literally, like, come on. And that, okay, Davos 2. He says, fool's blood, king's blood, blood on maiden's thigh, but chains for the guests and chains for the bridegroom. Aye. I mean, that is pretty obviously the Red Wedding. And it's, I mean, we've already had the, meeting Frey in a Game of Thrones. A Clash of Kings begins with Edmure doing weird movements and stuff like that, and needing to apologize to Robb. So the basic thing here is that, it's going to be Edmure's wedding, and the king is going to die there. Now, the fool dying here is interesting. Wait a minute. This says a Clash of Kings. Is fool's blood king's blood? Wait a minute. I was about to say, that's from A Storm of Swords. I knew it. This is A Storm of Swords. Obviously, like, again, Aegon got retconned. This is way late. So now we're at the beginning of A Storm of Swords. This is mislabeled. And the end of A Storm of Swords. Obviously, we're talking about the Red Wedding. Everything is in place at this point. Now George has a very specific idea of what's going on. We're not even in a Clash of Kings again, So, yeah, this is A Storm of Swords. Davos to A Storm of Swords. This is, so overwhelmingly obvious that you don't need any help at all. Because, like I say, Storm of Swords written very, very fast. Davos 5, A Storm of Swords, mislabeled. Under the sea, the old fish eat the young fish. Now, again, this is one that if you're just looking at that by itself, the old fish eat the young fish, it may be confusing, but in the context of Davos 5, you have to remember that this is a story about Stannis trying to sacrifice, or Davos thinking that Stannis is going to sacrifice Edric Storm. And here the YouTuber has put on the rat cook image, which, yeah, it's the same metaphor. I mean, George makes this metaphor a lot, like the metaphor of the old eating the young and child sacrifice is the metaphor of war, is what George is saying. George is saying, like, when we have war and people send off their sons to war, that is human sacrifice. That is the old eating the young. That is a disgusting, disgusting idea. And we're supposed to hate, we all know about, like, Stannis and Shireen and things like this. And there's the Melis the Monstrous, like, previous versions of Melis the Monstrous and in previous versions of A Dance with Dragons, that he sacrificed his children and things like that for power, right? That's what George's statement is. Like, when we make war, we are trading our children for power. That's what's going on. The old is eating the young. And here in Davos 5, Davos 5 Storm of Swords, it's very obvious that he's talking about Edric Storm here, and that Davos is supposed to think that he's talking about Edric Storm here. But yeah, is he talking about the rat cook? Yes, he's talking about it all. He's talking about Stannis' future. Maybe at this point he knows about Stannis wanting to sacrifice Shireen too, and the rat, it doesn't matter because it works with Edric Storm too. It does, it doesn't matter. But it's one of the major themes of the story about like war is human sacrifice. War is the old eating the young. And that's when we get to A Dance with Dragons. So Patchface, it's kind of interesting that like there's only 2 Patchface prophecies in a Storm of Swords, and they're simple. They're very simple, those 2. The ones in the Clash of Kings, they're a tad harder, but you get this, you get the gist of them. A Dance with Dragons, they start getting a little weirder, where you could read into a few other interpretations. But again, it's like, let's not read into it too much, because when George is getting to the end of A Dance with Dragons, he's writing pretty fast. He gets really stuck in the middle. John 9 is a stuck chapter. This is where he's writing in a relatively slow period, but there's not much to this one. He says, almost all the giants are gone. Ygritte wept for them. In the dark, the dead are dancing. I know. So let's think about the context of the chapter here, okay? When he says all the giants are gone, the giant song, if you remember it from A Storm of Swords, like it's about when the giants die, the song of silence is like eternal, right? So like there's no one to hear the song. Like what's the King of the Giants lyrics? They have it here. King of the Giants lyrics. I thought they would give the lyrics in this song. Come on. Last of the Giants. That's why I've got it wrong. Sorry, guys. Last of the Giants. Jesus. Okay. For when I'm gone, the singing will fade and the silence shall last long and long. So that's the idea, is that like when people, like the song is gone, but the silence remains forever, the sadness of death, right? The sadness of death, that there's just nothing, right? That when people are alive, there's song, but when they're gone, the silence is just silence for a long, long, long time, right? That's the context of what this is. And here he's talking about the dead are dancing, which is a more visual kind of thing. Like if somebody's dancing in the dark, Bruce Springsteen, it's meaningless because there's no one to see it. Like, it's just in the dark, the dead are dancing. Like clearly we're supposed to be thinking about the whites, but also like once they kill everybody, like there's nothing there. There's nothing to be seen. It's the same metaphor. Silence going for like silence being a nothingness, darkness being a nothingness. It's the same metaphor. One's auditory and one's visual. But there's not much. There's not much to this one. Like it's just like the dead are dancing. Like in the dark, the dead are dancing. Like clearly, it's just the whites. Like that's all you're talking about. It's just the whites. Like. So this one, again, not like nothing too deep. And so that's, get on to this one. This is one people talk about probably the most because there's a lot of ways you could probably read it. But he says, under the sea, the mermen feast on starfish soup and all the serving men are crabs. I mean, clearly, like you're supposed to think about Manderley with the mermen, right? And they're feasting. We literally have mermen at a feast when this chapter is going on. And crabs, crabs are supposed to eat dead bodies, right? So you're supposed to get that kind of idea that, but does it fit? Like some people are like, how does starfish represent the phrase? It doesn't matter. Like it doesn't have to fit that hard. Like, but clearly you're supposed to, when reading this, hearing about mermen feasting, you're supposed to be thinking about Manderley. Because they're the mermen in the story at this point. And I understand that like mer wives and other things like appear earlier in different visions, and like it's not consistent. And you're like, because you're not supposed to be taking the Patchface prophecies and looking for consistency among them. You're supposed to be like, what's happening in the story and how does it make me feel? But yeah, if we look at like the chapters of A Song of Ice and Fire, and we go to Jon 10. Okay, well, what's happening at the same time? Well, we're in the middle of Ghost of Winterfell and Theon 1. Okay. And so, like, we know that I don't know if Ghost of Winterfell is when the pies arrive, actually. I think the pies actually arrive earlier. Do they arrive in Turncloak? Is it even earlier? Prince of Winterfell? Yeah. Wow. Not very contemporary, actually, when you look at it like that. But starfish soup. I mean, you could try to say like, what is starfish soup? I don't know. Like some starfishes are poison, some starfish aren't. So like I say, like we went from simple to completely simple to the final ones, which are a little more ambiguous. Like clearly you're supposed to be thinking about that, but Frey pies happened way earlier in the story. If he was going to throw this quote in, he would have put it in Jon 9, or he should have put it in Jon 9. So I don't know. But then again, if you think about the order of how he wrote things, he kind of he was working on the Jon story, and then this Theon stuff he kind of wrote in a big blur at the end. So it may be just like writing order and how he shifted things in, that he might have written Jon 10 around the same time as the Theon stuff. Which is certainly a possibility that it has more to do with like George's writing time, because how they're placed, they're not very contemporary, but how they're written, they might have been. But yeah, I mean, you're just, crabs are supposed to eat dead bodies, and Manderley's feasting, but that's about it. But I will say this is the most ambiguous one we've had so far, like where you're like, that could mean something else. I mean, I've heard some people say, oh, starfish soup, that's like Faith of the Seven, and the mermen are, but you're like, but the mermen like worship the faith, and you're like, oh, the crabs, like who are the crabs? Like Celticar? Are they House Burrell? Like what does that have to do? None of that fits. So if you just kind of step back and go, this doesn't really like too much. Okay. And then we're getting the crow, under the sea, the crows are all white as snow. I think this one probably has a double meaning, where you're saying the white raven is coming for the first day of winter, like there's that, and you're probably also supposed to be thinking that the crows are going out and being covered in snow because they normally wear black, but they're covered in snow, so they're white. But so this one's more interesting in that there's two big potential meanings that are pretty obvious. And then we go a little further. And he says, away, away, the fool sang, come with me beneath the sea, away, away, away. He took the little princess by one hand and drew her from the room skipping. I think when you look at the chapter list, this is Jon 11. You got to remember when you're reading the story. I know I'm being a little contradictory because I was just talking about how like the Frey pies actually happens like way at a different time. But at least in this case, like Daenerys 9, like that's Daenerys's flight. Daenerys's 9 is that's her flight from Meereen. And then we get Jon 11 saying, "Come away with me, away with me." You know, like that's what I'm seeing it as. I mean, it could be just, you know, anything. You know, come away with me into visions or whatever, but come away to me into death. It doesn't matter. I read it as probably because we just have Dany's flight that it's going to be that. But it's so this one's like could be anything, right? Who will lead this? I will lead it. We will march into the sea and out again. Under the waves, we will ride seahorses, and mermaids will blow seashells to announce our coming. So again, we've got like two different things that we could potentially see this being. Like obviously when the others arrive, you blow your horns to announce they're coming. But also like Victarion is going to be blowing his horn to announce his coming at the Battle of Fire. So both of these things kind of work, and they're happening around the, you know, you're thinking that they're going to happen around the same time, right? Even though the others aren't showing up, but the idea, you know, so I would say this in this situation, we're probably talking about Victarion. Or you could probably think, oh, I'm going to be talking about the coming of the others, and you're going to be blowing your horns. But like people saying like, oh, blowing seashells, you know, oh, is that Celtigar's horn and stuff like that, you know, it's but then people say, but what about the mermaids? Does that fit with the mermen? No, don't think about it. Don't think about it. Riding seal horses, what does that mean? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Like it's not. You're supposed to be thinking about the announcing coming with like blowing horns, like obviously. And I think, at the same time, Stannis is arriving and Mor's Umber is arriving. They're blowing horns at the walls of Winterfell too, right? So you could also say that like, you know, the phrase marching out of the wall is that too, you know, or whatever. That's all you're supposed to be thinking about. Nothing too special, because that's what's happening contemporarily. And then I think, what are we getting to? Under the sea, men marry fishes. They do. This is again, like when he's saying the fish eat us, he's just saying these dudes are going to die. Like there's nothing deep about this one. Because this is when the knights are all talking about their betrothed and you know, people trying to marry a Val and things like that, and getting killed by the giant. And he's just saying that in my visions, people die. Oh, men marry fishes. Like that's as simple as that. Like you sleep with the fish, the fishes are eating you, you marry the fishes, like you're dead. That's all it is. This one isn't very deep. And that's it. So really, like, for all the talk of like people saying like, oh, Patchface is super cryptic and stuff like that, and what do they mean, and all the discussions, like there's essentially like only a couple that even have a bit of ambiguity. And that I would say is you could argue the seashell announcing they're coming, but that's probably Victorian. The mermen feasting on starfish soup would, again, probably, we're talking about Manderley feasting, or just the people feasting at Winterfell for that wedding, and that's about it. There's not too much ambiguity. Anyway, I've been talking about this for 45 minutes. Let's get into your guys' comments about all of this. Maybe, hopefully you'll be like, Preston, you don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what the mermen are. The mermen represent Nimble Dick. The mermen represent the squishers. Okay. Thanks for Jamie 1, please, sir. When may I have another? Yeah, no, I mean, I've been working on putting together Dany 2. I mean, it's gonna be some time. Like I haven't yet. Like this week, I spent time doing the going over Jamie, and then putting together the Cersei. I was doing a lot of thinking about Cersei to figure out what we wanted for the chapter call. But I'm back. I mean, I'm back to working on Dany. It's just very slow piecing it all together. So I'll piece that together and then get it to the editors, and then the editors have to work with it, but it'll be a little bit of time. But thank you for appreciating Jamie 1. And I worked on Dany today. This is like me. It's like me being George. Like I work on it every day. I work on the Winds of Winter every day. I worked on Dany today. Could dragons have been engineered using fireworms, wyverns, and cats? Cats play a prominent role in the story, and dragons exhibit cat-like behavior. I mean, I suppose. I mean, so, I was taught, so Carmine, Elio and I had a short discussion about, dragons, and we kind of, Elio and I both agree that, that dragons and Targaryens are genetically engineered to be linked. Elio thinks it's just straight up done with magic. Like magic is the thing that caused the changing of DNA. Like they use literal magic to do it. But he also believed that there was genetic engineering involved. I am more of the idea that like in the past they were more scientifically advanced, and so they did other methods, and so and you could say, well, aren't those the same beliefs like the Arthur C. Clarke like idea about technology and magic? Yeah, sure, but does it need to have fireworms, wyverns, cats? Sure, I'm not opposed to that idea, but also like if you're at the point where you have the technology or magic to alter your DNA to telepathically connect yourself to a dragon, would you need fireworms, wyverns, and cats? Like specifically, or are you past that point where you can just kind of do whatever you want? Like if you have the ability to do something, do you need something so simple and basic to make it happen? I mean, for fun, you could say sure. I mean, but do you see this in the future for like genetic engineering, where we're like today when we talk about genetic engineering and like maybe we can splice out like certain genes that give us cancer or something. Like when people do that, when we're talking about that with our society, like, do they say like, oh, but you know what's great was we can splice in like a platypus, like you know, that's never kind of discussed, like, oh, we've got this one platypus like code that we can like slop in there. No, they do something else, you know. So I never understood the whole like using fireworms or wyverns or cats to like alter their DNA kind of thing. Cause like the important thing between Targaryens and dragons is their telepathic link. And how that relates to a worm or a wyvern, I do not know. Like, yeah, it's all interesting that they were saying that like, oh, wyverns and fireworms existed back. Like maybe they genetically fused them, you know, like mouse and elephant or pig and elephant DNA just won't splice or whatever. I don't know. But like, is it important that dragons were fireworms and wyverns, that these two things occurred naturally and then they combined them and then somehow made themselves have a telepathic link to them? Why couldn't dragons exist naturally and then they just had a telepathic link to them? Why did we need the fireworms and wyverns thing first? Why do we need to have them have like bits of DNA when they have the either magical or technological ability to like do all sorts of genetic engineering? I don't know. I mean, like I say, I'm not opposed to any of it. I just don't necessarily think any of it's like necessary. And keep in mind, a lot of people are into this, like this fireworm, wyvern, genetic engineering stuff. Don't get me wrong. Like a lot of fans talk about it, but I just kind of feel it's unnecessary. Like, why couldn't dragons just exist in nature and then they caught one and then they did whatever they did to create their telepathic link? Why do we need the fireworm and wyvern aspect to it? I understand that like they're talked about in the Arya chapter, but I don't understand like what the function of it is. Like, I mean, it's the equivalent of being like, okay, I've got this story about the mythical creature, the mythical griffin. And what if before we had the griffin, like he was a combination of a chimera and a minotaur? And you're like, well, why are we combining two mythological beings to create another mythological being? Like if we're inventing a world, like, is someone sitting back and being like, I just don't think it's realistic that dragons would exist in this world. But you know what would exist? Wyverns and fireworms. Yes, that I can wrap my head around. And then they combined those two things that I think completely could exist to become this mythological creature. Like, why do we need this extra step? Why do we need to invent two mythological beings that were spliced together to make another mythological being? I don't know. Like, I don't know why that's necessary at all. Like, just have the mythological being. I mean, the cat, I understand with the, Balerion and stuff like that. But, I just, the dragons exhibit cat-like behavior. It's true. They exhibit a lot of different behaviors, certainly bat-like behaviors, certainly lion-like behaviors, certainly, horse-like behavior. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, like I said, I think it's all fun and everything, but I just think it's like a crazy, like unnecessary step. Patchface could kill Stannis after he burns Shireen. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, how are we getting? I definitely think that like Patchface is a Chekhov's gun in that respect. They've established that Patchface is super loyal, super fucking loyal to her. Okay, so he's definitely like just fucking there as a big fucking Chekhov's gun. Don't get me wrong. And yeah, he could. If I were gonna write how Stannis would be killed, I think Patchface fucking strangling him is a fucking perfect way for Stannis to die. Perfect fucking way for Stannis to die. Because no one sees it fucking coming. The only thing is like Stannis is nowhere fucking near the wall. How is he fucking gonna get to the wall? He's so fucking far from the wall that I don't know. I don't know how Stannis is. I know that, yes, absolutely, I accept that this was George's plan, that Stannis is going to burn Shireen. Logistically, he wrote himself into a situation where Stannis can't burn Shireen. I completely accept that Stannis was going to burn Shireen. We have so much evidence of this. I mean, the largest one being he literally fucking told D&D, who told us all that that was his plan. But also like just the earlier versions of A Dance with Dragons draft talking about Melis the monsters and the fucking rat cook and the who's at the fucking wall and the fucking, as we say, the Patchface thing, yeah. But then he went and fucking wrote Stannis like logistically not there. It's just so fucking crazy. But yes, I think that's a fucking perfect way for him to die. How do we get Stannis to the wall? Just fucking weird. You just put up interesting Nerd Club pinboards from the vid last week. Has all the patches info in one mind map. Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, it's done. It's done. Thank you, Ross. But it's done. You related the shadows come to stay thing with Aegon and Jon 1. Maybe make him say, "We're here to stay." How it relates, my lord. Relates, my lord. Yes, I did do that. Thank you for reminding me, Gael. This is true. Is I did do this in the fanfic. I like added some spice to Patchface's prophecy and switched it around to be referring to Jon Con here. I did do that. And it's funny because keep in mind we put together the Jon Con chapters of the fanfic like years ago. So I'm like, oh yeah, I did do that. That was pretty cool. We are here to stay. Yes. Yeah, I did do that. That thank you for reminding me about that. I tried to make Patchface's prophecies a little more interesting. I'd totally forgotten about that. Flames burn black, Blackfyre. Unfortunately, when George wrote A Clash of Kings, he had no idea about Blackfyres. Daemon Blackfyre is first mentioned in A Storm of Swords, and that's kind of the first time we really hear about him. During Clash of Kings, George didn't have any idea about Blackfyre specifically. He seemed to have been writing that, or at least open to the idea that the other claimant would be maybe a descendant of Aryan Brightflame, and then that idea gets shifted clearly to Blackfyres by the time you get to Storm, and especially when you get to like Feast, because at that point he's written The Sworn Sword and Mystery Knight. And so there's a big shift in the lore and what George thinks is important to the story. Keep in mind that like when he wrote A Clash of Kings, that was right after he'd written Hedge Knight, so he was very focused on Arya Brightflame, and then he shifts around and thinks now let's do this Blackfyre stuff. Let's do this Golden Company Blackfyre stuff, So, but yeah, but the flames running black. I read that like people get it. I read a lot of different fan theories like, oh, you can get black flame from the burning of sodium. That's like the salt. And it's like, well, no. Like smoke and salt, that's all Storm of Swords stuff. Like he wasn't thinking about that. So it's just people want a unified patches theory. Some theme when applied makes at least the inversion makes sense. Only way he has any value at all. I get it. Everybody's like, what does under the sea mean? And all of these sorts of things. They want one thing that'll make everything clear, and it's just not how it was written. I mean, the best you can say is that under the sea just means like in my visions, like in the flames, like in my visions under the sea. Because keep in mind that like when he was under the sea was when he was dead or near dying and having his near death visions and all of that. But you can say it's in his dreamlike state, right? When things are dark. This gets back to like sci-fi and fantasy tropes, right? So like this gets to, Bran having like everything going dark and having his abilities be enhanced. And this happens to Arya too, right? Things go dark and they have their sensory deprivation, and then they have this awakening. And it's the same with like falling and floating, this was a big 80s trope, so much so that they used it in Stranger Things season 1. The idea that sensory deprivation could unlock this like potential in our mind, right? It's a big sci-fi fantasy trope. The other one is flatliners, right? That like near-death experiences can also unlock like the unlimited potential of our mind. And so everybody has these like, oh my God, I was changing a light bulb and I got electrocuted and I had this near death experience. And then I saw blank, you unlock, you go into this mysterious part of your mind. They even use it in Back to the Future, right? Like Doc Brown, like slips and hits his head on the toilet, right? And he has this vision of the flux capacitor, right? It's the one of these tropes, right? It's the same fucking trope. Like, oh, he was near death, therefore he has all of these like crazy abilities, like to see the future, just like Bran has from his sensory deprivation. Like, what sci-fi trope like allows you to have your special abilities? But Under the Sea is essentially that. But do I think you can take the Patchface prophecies and list them out and be like, oh, this is what makes sense. This is what mer people mean, and this is what seahorses mean in each of them? No, I think the context of the chapter itself and the context of what book they're in and the context of like the other chapters around and what George is writing and where his mind was at the time is much more valuable than they are with each other, But I love overthinking Ice and Fire. I know. So don't we all? Patchface would be Daddy's third mount. That would be great. Hold his Patchface. He's kind of old because he can't be a bastard of Robert Baratheon, because they get Patchface when Stefan dies, right? So and so Stefan Baratheon, like it's on the same ship, and so Stefan dies in 279. So he's add 21 to, so like say you think that like Patchface is an 18-year-old slave, been trained as a fool, add like 21 years to that, and that's how old he is. So I mean, Patchface, like at his youngest, is pushing 40. I'm trying, unless there's any more information about him than that. Probably not, right? Love these calculations, like Patchface calculation. Patchface was brought in 278. He was described as a boy of capable of singing 4 tongues. And it's so funny because they're like, "Oh, could he be 4 years old?" No, like a boy implies he was not yet 16, and the age of majority. Well, I mean, not really, but because Theon's called a boy all the fucking time. Patches Kimball sing 4. Oh my god, these calculations, whatever. Like he's pushing 40 is the point. Sure, a sea star is a starfish, maybe. Thank you, Kellyanne. All quotes work if it's about gridiron, about football. That's true with the because the Dallas Cowboy guy, Sir Patrick is the Dallas Cowboy guy. Is the idea? They're all marrying fishes. Cowboy Daenys rendition of Patchface's Peak. I don't know, but who's Cowboy Daenys? That's we go back and we think about all of the Patchface prophecies, but in terms of football, you're like Under the Sea. We're just constantly talking about like Miami Dolphins. Like that's it. It's just all Miami Dolphins all day long. Cowboy Davidoff. Oh, okay. Patchface. Is this the one? No, that's not it. Wait, who's Cowboy? Cowboy. No, that's not his rendition. Who is Cowboy? This is not. I'm gotta find out who Cowboy Davidoff is. Oh, Enya, Cowboy Davidoff. I'm trying to. Is that the one? I'm trying to find it. I guess if that's the one. Oh no, this is it. All right, I found it. I found it. I found it. This is an impressive one. Okay, here it is. I've actually never seen this one before. That's impressive. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I was about to say the other ones were great art, but this is like overwhelming. Like the detail that he put into this, and like that is a really great that is a really great picture. It also makes him look a little less threatening. I'm always wondering, like, it is so crazy that say you're Stannis, okay, and you're like your dad die, your parents die in a shipwreck, and they in the same shipwreck was this really creepy like slave who has now gone completely batshit insane, and you've decided that you just want to keep him around as a fool. Like it's just like that's just a constant reminder that your parents are dead, right? It's just this constant reminder of that accident, that horrible tragedy, and then you're just keeping around this weird guy who's constantly like talking nonsense, and then your daughter just like you have this daughter, and the daughter's like, yeah, I love this like creepy nonsense dude, who is the only survivor of the shipwreck that killed your fucking parents. Like, who would do this? Like, who would keep Patchface around? Especially like the rendition, like the pictures that people have of him. Like when you start thinking like the super creepy ones, like you're um, like this, you're just like, oh God, like, like, why would Stannis want him around? Why would Selyse want him around? Like, at least in this situation, he's looking a little less threatening, and he's looking kind of cool and a little more, but it's just so funny. Like the situation, like who would do that? Who would fucking do that? Like, I mean, but using a modern analogy, like say your parents are driving just a guy named um, Leonard, and they die in a car accident, and Leonard is massively brain damaged. Okay, you don't even know Leonard. Would you keep Leonard around, this brain damaged dude from your parents' car accident that killed them, and then have your like daughter like hang out with Leonard? Like it's just so fucking it's just so fucking morbid and weird. Like what? What? Why would anyone do that? Oh man. Oh, maybe the starfish are money? But stars are copper. Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate thing is like the mermen are dealing with the silver, right? Maybe Starship Troopers. Loving the fanfic. Do you have a list of words, terms that George R. R. Martin uses? How do you portray his style so accurately? Top three fave characters. Um, so I don't use a regular list. I don't have like a list of things that George R. R. Martin uses. What to get George's style? There's a lot of different things that we do. I mean, some of it has to do with like George's love of non-repetition, starting every sentence differently. And yeah, every once in a while, like while I'm doing like one thing that helps is like I'm doing the going over Game of Thrones at the same time. So sometimes like you'll see something that he's used, and you're like, oh yeah, that's an interesting thing. Let's use that again. And a lot of times it's borrowing from George, or just George reminding us, like, oh right, that's how he writes, or that's a phrase he throws in. And so some of it's that, like finding a phrase that, and a lot of it's just like, even not even George specific. A lot of it's just like writers do it, right. There's writers' phrases that are used that we don't use in real life, like I say, like no sooner than da 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 than da 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 da. Like regular people don't use that. Writers use that. Like no, you're never going to write an email to someone that's going to be like, no sooner did da 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 than da 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 da. Like you're just not. It's just not something commonly done. So a lot of it's just like, you look at George's previous stuff and you see a sentence and you're like, oh, I could color that up, and then pop that in. A lot of times I check like medieval books of idioms and such, and I don't like copy the same idioms, but like a lot of the stylistic like flavor of them I'll include. Now for words and stuff, like a lot of times you'll be reading and going over it, and this is also stuff that the other editors do, but you want to check that, like, oh, is that a term that George uses? Because you have to be careful. Like sometimes George doesn't use something. Like he doesn't use the word theater, So you're like, oh, he doesn't use theater? No. So you have to use like stage, or just little things like that. Like, what words does he use? Does George R. R. Martin use the word lunch? Okay, he does use the word lunch, but not much, like, does he use the word testicle? Like, yeah, but not, not much. What does he use mainly? Oh, he used mainly stones. And then you have to like think like, how much do I want to deviate from like standard George into like seldom used George to not George at all? Every once in a while, there's a word that George doesn't use that will pop in, but it's usually a medieval word, like wimple, which is a woman's like headdress or something, like hat kind of thing, in medieval times. Like, he never used wimple, but we're like, okay, wimple seems like something that would fit in the story. But there's no set list, but it's just like at this point, me and the editors have spent a lot of time with George's work, and you kind of just get a feel of how he puts sentences together. A lot of it's standard writing stuff, like very sentence lengths, have a long sentence, then a short sentence, transition the previous sentence into the new one, use known subjects, vary the and then also like you go back and George, the whole thing about his point of views is that he does pay attention to how a point of view sounds, and he writes them differently. Tyrion and Catelyn are the most poetic, and then you kind of go down, and they become less poetic. Areo Hotah and Bran are not as poetic as Tyrion and Catelyn, and you kind of have this like hierarchy, and sometimes you just sit there and imagine you're the character. Well, what would they do? There's certain things, individual characters that they do, like Sansa and Cersei always talk about what other women are wearing. Like that's like a very important thing that you just kind of have to have in there. Well, that's not something that, whatever Arya is going to care about, So yeah, that's it. I mean, you sit there and you look at George's other stuff, and you kind of say, okay, what are some little things, how, like I say, like he doesn't repeat people's names very much. Like, if he's going to use Jaime, it's going to be one time in a paragraph. Very rarely he's going to use it 2, maybe 3, but like it's not like when you read Harry Potter and Harry is in a paragraph 10 times. Like it's a very different writing style. And you know, George begins paragraphs with like often very bold short sentence, and then the rest of the paragraph is longer. It kind of creates this certain flow. I don't know. I need to do a video on like how to write like George, because there is just a lot of little things. But I mean, just, you know, every once in a while you're like, you go back and you're reading George's other stuff and you're like, oh right, that's I can figure out a way to shove that in to create, to give it more flavor. You know, you just I sometimes just like hear something and I'm like, huh, I could throw that in. I could throw that into the fanfic. Like when I heard somebody say like, I don't know him from Adam, like a month ago, and I was like, huh, I could throw that into the fanfic. That seems like a cool thing, but we'll change it to Pate. You know, I don't know them from Pate, you know, something like that. But there's the answer is I do a lot of different things, like medieval idioms, writing books. Like I read other books too and be like, huh, I like the way that sentence is structured. I'm going to structure a sentence the same way. It's not so much like, that's the thing, is it's like copying style. It's because it's not plagiarism. Like you're not taking somebody's sentence word for word. But sometimes I look at the way a sentence is constructed, you know, the way the prepositional phrase begins, or, you know, how it's put together and how it leads in from the previous sentence to the next. And I try to like imitate that sentence structure. Anyway, but in the fanfic, my top favorite characters right now, I love the Samwell chapters the most. I think we're doing the coolest stuff with Sam, and there's so much more potential. There's so much potential with Sam. I think he's absolutely the best. And then I do like what we're doing with Bran, and I also I think I love Aeron. But if I'm talking about like with George, like top characters with George, I think the most characters, the funnest stuff to read from George in my mind is the fucked up stuff, like the fucked up characters. So I think, you know, like Theon, Aeron, and Victarion, I think are just so much fun to read. The crazy fucking Ironborn. I just think they're so much fun. Oh, why do Mel's visions tell her to be afraid of Patchface? I mean, I think people are, you know, like I said, I think Patchface is I think he is a Chekhov's gun. Like he's just there. He's there to kill somebody. He's there to do something fucking nuts. He's there to be fucking crazy. I mean, in a sense, he's like, if you're thinking about the movie Saw, right? That body is in the middle of the fucking room the whole movie, and you kind of forget that the body's there. They're doing all this fucking shit, and then all of a sudden the body gets up and he was alive the whole time, and he fucking, oh my god, the Chekhov's gone. Like Patchface is that. Like he has no function in the story other than to say some like crazy shit every once in a while to make the reader go, ooh. He's got it, you know, and he's fiercely loyal to Shireen, who we all know is like a target. So something's happening. I mean, yeah, Mel should be fucking afraid of Patchface. Patchface is a fucking ticking time bomb. You know, ticking time bomb. He's gonna do some crazy shit. That's what, you know. We're not sure. Yeah, it was Jamie too. But yeah, but Mel should be afraid of him. He's a time bomb. How do you square George R. R. Martin's care for small folk with the fact that the point of views are nobility? Even his self-inserts like Sam are noble. or noble dandy, like noble dandy's unlike himself. So George's feelings about the poor are a bit mixed. So George has written a lot. Like, yes, George grew up rather poor, and however, he describes his family as being like a few generations back of having some wealth, and then they kind of lost that wealth. And so he kind of always perceived himself as, he says this in interviews, like I've heard him say, like he always perceived himself as being of wealth, even though that was like completely fictitious. Like, you know, he was poor. And the other thing is that like, even though he is poor, he doesn't fit in with other poor people because, you know, poor people generally are uneducated because they just don't have the opportunities. And he's a genius, right? And so he, even though he is poor, he doesn't feel like he's poor. Like is what I'm saying. Like he had his family myth in his head. Like he was talking about how like he would go around and see these like stores that he knew his family used to own like generations back. And then didn't because his father is a longshore fisherman or whatever. And so he perceived himself as, and he said this in interviews, he perceived himself as like the hidden prince, the prince and the pauper, the deposed king. You know, there's a lot of, I guess there's a lot of this, like Viserys cinema, you know. The other thing is like there's a lot of George R. Martin stories where he portrays like poor people in bars. It's always in bars, but it's like, and the kind of hopelessness of a lot of them, because he doesn't see a lot, even though he's poor and he sympathizes and wishes they had opportunity. He also like is angry at them for not ever having any ambition or even trying or doing really fucking stupid shit, like getting into drugs or, you know, so he like, on the one hand, he kind of like curses their stupidity at the same time. Like, so he has this like weird sympathy, yet also like anger, at essentially his like childhood friends, you know. And this is you can read The Stone City or Nobody Leaves New Pittsburgh, or stories like this that really kind of that really show like his feelings about like where he came from and the people that he left behind in Bayonne, New Jersey, you know. So that's the odd thing, right? Is that he is from this poor background, but he never really felt like he fit in among those poor people because they weren't that smart and weren't that ambitious, and he was smart and ambitious. And so, you know, once he went off to Northwestern and, you know, then he became like a college lecturer, and then he became a writer and stuff like that. Like, you know, he has a different set of peers. And so I do think that like, how, you know, why isn't there that many, like there isn't the small folk? Well, you know, even though he'd like to have the story be about the small folk and the class warfare, which is how the series began, you know, small people, like, they don't have the power they don't have the agency in the story to do anything cool. Like, you start thinking about like our poor characters. It's Davos, who lucked into the most unlikely situation in order to gain agency and power in the story, right? Like think about like how ridiculous the Davos situation is, right? Oh, you can be, let's say you're a poor guy and you're a smuggler, and then you just happen to actually become really rich, and then you happen to spontaneously want to help out this random dude in a blockade for no reason, like, and then fall into his good graces. Like it was just like, why was Davos betting on Stannis at the time? Like, of all people, why was he doing this? Well, because the story needed him to, so he could get into this incredibly powerful position to become like a member of the story. So, or Ariel Hota, this very unlikely story of like, okay, he's this really poor like guard who happens to be chosen to be the personal bodyguard who follows around one of the richest, most powerful men in Westeros. Like that's where we are, right? Like the two super poor characters, or Melisandre, like, you're a slave, but then you happen to be incredibly gifted with like visions and then attach yourself to an incredibly powerful king. It takes a lot for these. It takes a lot of luck for these like these small folk characters to get POVs and like be important in the story. And which is why like people write about rich people. Rich people have power. They have interesting lives. Poor people have to work all the time, and can't go anywhere. This is why you have characters like Scrooge McDuck. Like, oh, if I have a character like Scrooge McDuck, he can literally do anything because he has infinite money. Rather than your character just being like, oh, I'm poor. Oh, I've got to go to work. And then I'm going to take my money and I got to pay my bills. Oh, you can't like buy a rocket ship and go to the moon. No, no, sorry guys. So, I mean, yeah. So it's all of this is like a long way of saying like George never really felt like he fit in with the poor. He has sympathy for them, but he doesn't really feel like he fit in. And it's really hard to write for the poor, write poor characters because they don't have any power to do anything. Anyway. Why is the wall made of ice? Do you think the wall is made by the others? What if they can pass through like stone through mist? What we know of the wall is a bit contradictory. So like when you start reading a Game of Thrones, they talk about the wall like George Mormont brings up the fact that like each generation of the Night's Watch would leave the wall higher. That the reason the wall is so high is more like the Great Wall of China. Like, and if you know anything about the Great Wall of China wasn't built all at once. It was like you built a little bit here, and then it was a small wall, and then you built it bigger, and then you built it bigger, and then you built it bigger. And it took centuries to have some of the parts of the wall be enormous, So this idea that like each generation was building the wall higher, and they'd go out and they'd cut ice and they'd bring it back. The builders would go out and cut ice and repair the wall and stuff like that. That idea goes away as time goes on. The wall is reframed as this thing that heals itself, that you can drill in and the walls close up and it becomes more magical, or technological. I mean, I would argue maybe there's a big refrigeration unit spanning the entire wall or something causing the thing. Because the wall, it doesn't make any sense in that ice sublimates. So you can't have this wall existing for thousands of years. Okay. It would eventually flatten out, get wider at the bottom, and become like a big long glacier. Like you'd unless you had a massive manpower to keep it the way it is, which they don't have, So it's silly. It's obviously silly. It's been retconned a bit. But do I think it was made by the others? I mean, originally in the story, clearly not. But now, like who either created the magic or the refrigeration unit underneath the wall that keeps it the way it is? I mean, I think it could be the others. It could have been a joint project between the others and Man, or at the time, and things like that. What if they can pass through a stone? What if they can pass through like a stone through mist? Well, I mean, it's not really something that we've seen the others being able to do, that they could phase through the wall. I mean, it's also not necessarily like really necessary in the story. The thing about the wall is there's so many ways around it, right? That you don't really need to pass through it, right? You can literally walk around at Eastwatch. You can cross a bridge at the Bridge of Skulls. You can go under it through Gorn's Way. You can climb over it. You can take your ice spiders and climb over it. You can blow a horn and break it open. You can defeat a fort and go through one of the gates. You can get on some boats and go around it. Like, there are so many fucking ways to get around the wall. Like, so many ways. That do we need another one? Do we need another one that they could just walk through it like mist? It's amazing. I mean, maybe the plan really was for a white dragon to breathe fire and melt the wall, but it's also just like, oh my God, why is that necessary? Like, why can't these motherfuckers just climb the wall like the wildlings do, or go under it through tunnels like Gorn's Way, or go around at Eastwatch, or go over the Bridge of Skulls, or like, why do we need all of these other ways? We've got so many fucking ways to get around the wall. Or take a fucking boat. Build a fucking boat, guys. Yeah, I mean, I think that like at some point it's established that there's some sort of magical barrier though that's keeping them out. And so it's not really necessary. Like, even if they could walk through it like a stone through mist, I think the idea is that there's some sort of barrier that's preventing the others from doing it. And that barrier could be like broken at some point. But in the fanfic, describing people that have been there since Game of Thrones but have no descriptions, what's the thought process? Relying on fan art? Around with tabling the editors. Upcoming Cersei 2, Mark Mullendore needs his long-haired monkey and sideburns. I will say that like there's no hard and fast rule, but generally speaking, like there's kind of a why not aspect to it. Like, yes, if like the Miko did a lot of art for a lot of characters, and it's like, well, if you don't have a need to make the character look a certain way or not, like, why not use the Miko's description? I think specifically, I want to say with regards to the Strong brothers in the Golden Company, I'm trying to remember if we followed how they looked in the because I remember that like at least one of the Humphrey and Dennis Strong, is Dennis and Duncan Strong? Dennis and Duncan Strong. I want to say at least when one of the submissions came in, they had followed the the Miko artwork on them. And I'm not sure if it was kept or not. I mean, because stuff can just get changed for a lot of reasons. But let me see here. Yes, Maester Daenys, our clever way of. I'm trying to think here. Because this is those are the brothers that like really made me think about it. Right, Aegon. I'm trying to think. I can't believe I'm like going through. I'm like, man, we really Daenys gets a lot of messages or a lot of action in the story. Daenys Strong had his own role. His eyes tired and glassy. I'm trying to remember if we did this. Anyway, but that came up. I mean, it's not that important. But if it's not that we the whole thing is like, obviously if it fits the story to change the description, that's one thing. Like one example, I think in the latest Jaime chapter, the ram and the clam, you know, like we wanted a character to look like a ram and another one to look like a clam. And it's like you could, in that case, it didn't really serve the story to have like a complete description, like to have beardless, like the picture of beardless Dick from the Miko looks like this. Well, that doesn't serve the story because we want him to look like a clam. We want to be completely hairless, right? So like in that case, it like changes. So it's sort of like, I think it's like kind of like when people talk about generally like extended universe canon with Star Wars or whatever. Like if what's written doesn't contradict like a canon thing later, you can kind of accept it as happening. But like once something, you know, happens that undoes it, then you kind of then it changes. That's kind of the thing. Like we'll use like a picture or fan art if it's convenient or if it's, you know, if it's there. But if the minute it doesn't serve the story, then things get changed. But yeah, like Mark Mullendore, like is he gonna have sideburns? You know, I don't know. It also depends if like, does it serve the moment to describe the person and what exactly they look like with Mark Mullendore. Like in Cersei 2, I don't know if like Mark Mullendore doesn't really get any attention. So there's no like there's no moment where you want to describe the guy. So like, is Mark Mullendore's description ever going to come up? I don't know. I mean, maybe. I do think it's, you know, the picture is fine for him. These sideburns and beard. Where did his monkey go? We got to get his monkey back. But that's the process, is that like, yeah, the fan art is fine until the moment it stops serving the story. Like if something happens in the story where you need to change it. But I think we'd kind of relied on it for the Strong Brothers with the Golden Company. I remember that coming up, but again, like with the Ram and the Clam, like, well, it didn't serve the story, so we're gonna remove it, you know. Anyway, yeah, Patchface is like Hodor, normal but gets mentally messed up. In your fanfic, he is also affected by time traveling Bran, maybe witness to Bran's werevisions. That would be my guess. I mean, my guess is that like all the visions come from the same place, that they all come from time traveling Bran, like fundamentally. That like whether they like a lot of people, I think for a long time, you know, they're in this other fantasy story mindset where like gods or God actually exists. Like in Lord of the Rings, like there's actually a God, right? And so they're like, oh, R'hllor is sending visions, you know, like there's this big fiery God who's like sending shit. Because the werewoods are sending, you know, Bloodraven and the werewoods are sending visions. But like, is that the case? Why would they be sending visions? Like, can't they just all come from time traveling Bran in the end? Like to try to like affect the timeline, to try to make small changes in order to have the story come out differently. So yeah, I think everything is in the end fundamentally time traveling Bran, just like making changes. And I do think like all visions like are I mean, I suppose it's not necessarily true to say that like all the visions are from him, because there are definitely like glass candle people who are creating visions on a lower level. Like we could argue that like Marwyn and like the Sphinx and stuff are causing visions with their glass candles. But like fundamentally, I think a lot of the big ones, like what you see at the House of the Undying, what people see in Flames, that they all come from time traveling Bran. You know, time travel Bran's like John's weird werewood dream where he goes and sees Bran in a tree, you know, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I do think that Patchface, I do think Patchface 2, yes, I think Patchface 2 is getting stuff from time traveling Bran. Yeah, no, you know, people don't talk about Patch, or I guess, you know, then you start thinking like the different people's dreams, like the Toland girl and stuff like that. Patchface, you know, he's nowhere near a werewood. You know, he's not dreaming or anything like that. He like has all these visions like right there in his head, unless he's, you know, unless he remembered them all from when he nearly died. No, I think he's kind of getting visions constantly, right? People don't talk about that. That like, oh, Patchface is getting visions like real time. Oh, who would win a singing contest between Ilyn Payne or Wex? I guess Ilyn Payne. With Ilyn Payne, you at least hear him like clacking. You know, Wex, we don't hear him talk at all. So like, just on participation, like Ilyn Payne would win, because Wex wouldn't even try. They'd be like, okay, here's your song, and then Wex would like stomp his feet and be like, and like stomp his feet. Well, Ilyn Payne would be like. I mean, like that's closer to singing is Ilyn Payne, you know. If I were Robb in a Clash of Kings, how would I win the war? Okay, well, fundamentally, like the first thing you got to do is start listening to your mom, because Catelyn is really so. Yeah, you don't let Theon go. You don't let Theon go. That's a big thing. You definitely keep Theon. Now the question is like, would would they still attack with Theon? I mean, the idea is like fundamentally no, but somehow they were kind of preparing for it. But yeah, you leave way more people at Moat Cailin than Robb did. Moat Cailin is the most important place in the fucking universe. Like, it's so fucking important. Like, do not leave Moat Cailin, moderately guarded. That's ridiculous. Like, that's just a bad idea. Bad idea. So the big thing, guard Moat Cailin massively. Do not allow Victarion to come in with his little ships and take it out. Because that's the dumbest thing. Like, one of the most strategic points in Westeros. It's the most strategic point in Westeros. And you fucking left too few people there. Okay, so that's a really bad move. Do not give command of anything to fucking Roose Bolton. That guy's a creep. Okay. Give it to some people. Give it to some people that you trust. Give it to some people you trust. This is all advice Catelyn gives. Like, give something to even Theon Greyjoy over fucking Roose Bolton. Don't give command to Roose. I don't know. She was okay with Roose Bolton actually, but she okay. So the minute you get over that bridge after making that agreement with Walder Frey, you fucking attack Walder Frey and fucking take the twins. You don't fucking you take it. I understand that like a lot of people, you march the Freys, like you take those Frey soldiers and you march them down, and while they're down there, you take a few soldiers back and you fucking take that bridge. And you're like, fuck you, Walder Frey, Edmure called his banners and you didn't fucking show up. No, don't fuck with us. Okay, so Moat Cailin, take the fucking bridge. Okay, two big fucking mistakes. And I don't know. After that, then you can start making some deals with Stannis and Renly, because in the end, what Robb wants is he wants the Lannisters out and like justice for his dad, and neither of those things require him to be king. Like, him becoming king is just dumb. Like, it's dumb. Like, bend your knee to Renly, bend your knee to Stannis. Because what's like, that's the thing, is like when we talk about Iran and like, what's the fucking goal with Iran? We don't know. We don't know what the goal for Iran. Now the goal just seems to be opening the straits, which we had before the war, right? It's the same with like Robb. Like, what are Robb's goals? His goals are getting his dad back or vengeance, taking out the Lannisters, right? How does declaring yourself king of the North meet those goals? It does not. Declaring yourself king was a really fucking bad move. Okay? If you're talking about your goals, which are getting your dad back or just vengeance against the Lannisters and having them out of power, like, bend the knee to Stannis, bend the knee to Renly. You do not fucking need to be king in the North. That's just dumb move. So yeah, those are some, I think that's pretty, guard fucking Moat Cailin better. Fucking kill off Walder Frey immediately for not going to Edmure. And then bend the knee to fucking Renly or Stannis. Doesn't matter which. One of the two. Like, just one of the two. But don't, and wasting all your fucking time sending your mom treating places. Like, no, just fucking, like, establish your fucking goals. That's the thing. Establish your fucking goals and then work towards your goals. It's the problem. Fucking had shifting goals. When you have shifting goals, you achieve nothing. Anyway, so I'm teetering on letting fanfic add to my main continuity for story. That means removing ideas that are proven wrong by the fanfic advice. I mean, who knows? It's removing ideas. You got it. I mean, the fun thing is that like now we're like time traveling Bran here because we're dealing with multiple realities, right? And we have to keep track of our multiple realities because now people like this isn't the first like Ross. You're not the first person to say like I'm getting to the point where I'm beginning to confuse the fanfic with like the real story and like what has been established, which just happens in the theory crafting all the time. People are like, wait, wasn't that canon? Because the fandom had assumed it was canon for so long, and then you start losing track. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess just just accept multiple worlds. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough. All right, I'm way behind. Stannis waiting for patches to make him laugh. I'm keeping this motherfucker around until he makes me laugh one time. You know, that's the thing. Maybe does Patchface make Stannis laugh? Has Stannis ever laughed? Has Stannis ever laughed? He has he does laugh. Oh, you're right. Like he does kind of laugh at Theon. I mean, that's kind of the funny thing that like Theon can make him. Theon does tell jokes. I mean, Stannis does tell jokes though, which is pretty. I don't know if we ever see Stannis laugh, but he does. Stannis does have a dry sense of humor. He does make jokes, which is kind of hilarious, you know. Like when Theon's like, "I flew," and he's like, "You fell," you know, or like, "There are no chairs," and you know, he's like, "Only mine," you know. Like he does tell like jokes. It's just dry. Stannis one-liners. Yeah. Yeah. Without a son of Winterfell to stand beside me, I can only hope to win. I can only hope to win the North by battle. That requires stealing a leaf from my brother's book. Not that Robert ever read one. You know, like there's some. You know, he's got some jokes. You know, who better to command the gold cloaks than a man who once commanded the gold, sire? Any of you, I would think, even the cook. You know, Stannis is a funny dude. He's a funny dude. But it is funny that he's just keeping around Patchface for like he's eventually. Yo ho ho, how's my Patchface?
So is what you're saying is Stannis is he's not funny, but he has some of the best remarks ever.
I mean, he's funny that he's so. I mean, that's a funny thing about like humor, right? Like there's a lot of things where like we're like, oh yeah, that's really funny. Like you're not laughing, but you appreciate like the humor of it. Like Stannis does appreciate humor, you know.
He's the sassiest character in the books. One of my favorite Stannis conversations is forgot who says it to him. It's one of the Night's guys, one of the Night's Watch guys, who goes, "Who's better to command the Night's Watch than someone who once commanded the Gold Cloak, sire?" And Stannis says, "Any of you, I would imagine. You know, even the cook." It's like, damn,
yeah, it's good stuff. How are things going?
They're going. We're gonna stream soon on my channel. We got a lot to talk about.
Sure thing.
Because people have been asking me about the play. People have been asking me about the fucking publisher thing, which I think you touched on briefly last week. I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Look, the things, no, yeah. The book's not out. I just think people just need to stop. It's amazing how many times like people can fall for the same shit. Hey, you know, Carmine, the Straits of Hormuz are open. Like, hey, everybody, the war is almost over. Like, how many times are you gonna fucking fall for this shit, man? Like, how many times?
He's doing it to try and control the markets.
Sure, but I mean, that's the thing is if you had inside trading going on whether if there were a stock related to Winds of Winter coming out, okay, and where you could make money by saying like, oh, Winds of Winter is coming out, and then like really, but there's not one of those things, you know. It's not like, but on reflection, Stannis justice cutting Davos's fingers disturbs me. Thanks for the food. Hey, did you smuggle it here? Stannis himself is a rebel. I think Stannis is written to be a psycho. No. Yeah, I think Stannis is, of course, written to be a bit of a psycho, and like, of course, Davos is written to be a bit of a I guess, trying to think of a better word than an Uncle Tom, but yeah, a bit of an Uncle Tom, like that. He's just, you know, he takes it, he just takes it, and it's like, yeah, that's great, yeah, it was really great that you cut off my fingers, like, oh god, that was just, you know, it's like. You're supposed to look at it like, what kind of psycho would repay his own survival with that kind of like that action? Of course, Stannis is psychotic, you know. But yeah, weird justice. Hey Preston, just wanted to say thank you for all the years of enjoyment of your videos have given me. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. That's very nice. How did Patches even survive the siege of Storm's End? I guess we don't think about like where Patchface is during the siege of Storm's End, do we? Like was Renly there too? It's like Renly a starving kid at the siege of Storm's End. That's another thing. Like, what were they fucking doing? Right? Shouldn't Renly be like a starving child at the same time? And like wouldn't that have certain like feelings about Stannis and this is all this stuff, like clearly no one ever thought about it. But we just kind of, you know, have it. Like what was Patches doing during the Siege of Storm's End? What was Renly doing during the Siege of Storm's End? Maybe Patches is kept around, like he's making people laugh during the Siege of Storm's End. That might be something to add to the fanfic. Like, why do you keep that motherfucker around? And Stannis is like, during the Siege of Storm's End, like he brought joy to a lot of people. You know, like something. Huh. Crescent, what, you know, Crescent? Was Crescent there too? All of those people. I don't know. Carmine, what do you think about all these like random people during the Siege of Storm's End and how they're surviving?
I'm looking in the world of Ice and Fire because I'm sure it's in there somewhere. I'm sure it is. I remember reading about it in there. I could ask Elio real quick. But I'm sure it's in there.
I mean, that'd be an interesting one. You're like, hey, Elio, I imagine was Renly and Patchface and Crescent like all starving during the Siege of Storm's End as well? Like,
I got you.
It's just a funny thought to think about. It's just a strange thought
Elio,
to think about. Yeah,
we were talking about the Strait of Hormuz and the conversation of Renly.
he'd be like with the Strait of Hormuz, he'd just be like, I don't want to talk about that. That's just things are expensive enough in Sweden. Oh, Aerys shows restraint with the Starks and sends Kingsguard to summon Rhaegar to court to settle the dispute instead. What happens next? Who comes out on top? Oh, like realistically, like his like the Rick and well, he let's say he arrests Rickard Stark and like keeps him in a cell, and then it's like, okay, Rhaegar, come back so we can have a fucking trial and deal with like this situation. I mean, obviously like Aerys is supposed to be insane and none of this is supposed to work. We need this conflict, right? But
is the question a versus between Rhaegar and Brandon?
No, I think he's just saying a what if. Like Rhaegar comes back and he has to actually explain and talk through what to deal with this like kidnapping. And does Rhaegar come back and is like, actually, she came with me willingly and she doesn't really want to get married to Robert Baratheon, and we would like to break your betrothal so that like she can be my paramour. Like, I don't know how well that's going over. I mean, I don't think it changes much, actually, now that I think about it. Because now you're talking about like, isn't Robert still going to rebel on the fact that his betrothed was like kidnapped? Regardless of whether Aerys calls for Robert's head first, like is he going to take it? And he's
Wait, so what are you saying? Like in this hypothetical, like what, Rhaegar comes back and they're like, yeah, she came with me willingly, and they just call off the betrothal. We'll just have another Baratheon rebellion like we did last time.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that like the impetus, after Rhaegar kidnaps Lyanna, like it's or even if they go off like willingly, like it's such a large insult that regardless of like Rickard Stark's like behavior, Robert Baratheon is still going to fucking cause some trouble. Like Robert Baratheon is still going to say, fuck you guys, I'm going to war. I need to kill Rhaegar. And then the minute he's like, I'm going to fucking kill Rhaegar, like, well, now Aerys is like, well, then there's going to be war. I mean, you could try to get some sort of trial by combat between them and that Robert fucking like crushes Rhaegar's chest in. But do you think Aerys is good, like after he watches his son gets his chest crushed in, he's not going to immediately just want to execute and burn Robert? The thing is, like, the conflict is just like, regardless of like one thing, like the burning of Rickard Stark and the strangulation of like of Brandon, you still have this like, you still have Robert and you still have Rhaegar, and that is never going to cool down, no matter what. Like,
right?
No explanation is gonna placate Robert. Like, you want to steal my betrothed, who I fucking love. It's in my head, but what I love, so that she can be your paramour? Like, you're already fucking married, dude. Like, that's like, Robert would just be like that. Like, you want to steal my love to be your sex toy. Like, that's, yeah, Robert's not taking that. He's not taking that. The war is inevitable the minute they go off together. So it's kind of funny to think that like Rickard and Brandon are actually kind of irrelevant to the story, but that it would have happened anyway.
Well, it was built on a lie. So Robert's rebellion was ultimately built on a lie.
Yeah. They were in love. Oh, really? Oh, okay. Oh. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That makes everybody feel better, you know. Like,
I'm gonna be so upset if that
you like
came
walk
from
in on your girlfriend like cheating on you, and you're like, well, you know, she's in love with the other guy, so you know everything's cool. That's
okay. Let's go home, guys.
Do you think the others are psychically influencing anyone in the story or sending false visions? Euron, perhaps. I don't think the others would be, or I'm just trying to think like timing what, like what the like if you're thinking about like what the others are trying to do, like how that helps them in any way, or any like creating conflict south of the wall so they can invade. They have such a fucking unstoppable force to start with. Like, why would they even bother? You know. And it reminds me of the Gene Stealer cults. Like, why would the Tyranids even need the Gene Stealer cults? Like, they're so fucking overpowered. Do they really need the Gene Stealer cults to weaken everybody before they arrive?
That's actually a very good point. Yeah, why do they need Gene Stealer cults? That's a good point. Got some more models.
I know. It's just like over the top kind of thing. It's kind of the same thing like with the others. Like, why would they even bother? There's so many things that they could be doing that would work better than you know, grabbing Mance and killing Mance and turning all of the people at the fist of, you know, at the in the Frost Fangs into others before they even have a battle, like, would be more useful, you know, because then you're maximizing your bodies, and then just walking them, then just getting on boats or just walking them around the wall or whatever. So no, I don't see anything like that. They don't seem to have any vision sending abilities. We don't really get that sense. I mean, I'm trying to think about like anything, that possibility. But
by the way, on this topic of sending visions, I never got an answer. I guess Homeboy's been too busy. I never got an answer for your Star Wars question. So to the audience, Preston is watching the Clone Wars cartoon with his son.
Oh yeah,
and they get to this arc called the Mortis arc, where Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka enter this like floating pyramid in space. And the manifestation of the light side, good side, and the balance, light side, dark side, and balance of the Force are there. And everyone's receiving visions. So Preston hits me up and he goes, who's sending Anakin these visions of him in the future? I didn't have the heart to tell you that, like, man, it's just visions. Like you're like
right. No one's sending them. They're just, I wouldn't even say plot points. They're just like exist, you know, like
you're too ice and fire brained to like you're attributed to Star Wars, but like, man, it's just
someone has to send the visions, right? They can't exist independent on their own.
It's just take it as it is. It's Star Wars. What are you gonna do? You can't turn it off. I love it.
I mean, it's funny because like it's funny that you like asked like the premier Star Wars expert, and he's just like and then doesn't get back to you.
What's even even funnier is like your son is asking the same questions you ask in Ice and Fire. Like, Daddy, who's sending those I don't know.
The thing is when you described it back to me, you're like, I vaguely remember that plot line, and it didn't make any sense to me, and I wasn't very interested in it because it was just like weird and I just moved on. Like, and I was like, oh, yeah. So like I'm saying, like on a subconscious level, you were asking the same questions. Like, what the fuck is this?
I just find it funny how like your son is literally just like just exactly how you do it, you know? Who's sending these visions? Is it Blood Raven? Is it the Night King? Like,
well, he was really scared by that episode. He was watching all of the fucking Clone Wars, was fine. And then he gets to this like vision of Shmi Skywalker talking to Anakin, and Shmi seems kind of evil in it. And he's just like, who was that? Was that actually like, was that his mom? And I was like, I think it was like a trick to try to get Anakin to stay, sent by the father. Maybe, but I like look it up and like, there's no answers online. Like nobody fucking knows. Nobody knows. Nobody knows who fucking like what the deal with the visions are.
I hit up Star Wars Explain. He goes, look, man, I don't think that hard on it. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Oh, thoughts on Bookborn, parcel and letter from George containing work not available. I'd never heard of. You got much love from the big man? No, I've never gotten that love. Well, when you say like unavailable, it's like out of print stuff. But like, I either have or have found everything that like George has written. So like I've read it too. Bookborn and I will be talking and doing a video relatively soon in the next couple of weeks on her favorite and least favorite George R. R. Martin stories and my favorite and least favorite George R. R. Martin stories. And what's funny is that some of the stories, it'll be a really great video because some of the stories on my favorite are on her least favorite list. And some of my favorite, I wouldn't say are her. Oh yeah. Some of her favorites. No, I still like all of her favorites, but like some of the favorites on my list are like, are on her least favorite list. So it should be a really, really fun discussion. So it should be pretty cool.
I haven't seen her list, but I would imagine Meat House Man would be like her least favorite.
Yes. You've guessed one. Yeah. Yes. Meat House Man.
Well, yeah, because
one of her least favorite stories, and it's one of my favorite stories. Yeah.
Really? Jesus Christ. I don't know if I would admit that, but
for no. I mean, I don't want to like spoil everything we're going to be talking about, but like Meat House Man, I think there's just a lot of dark truth to how the human brain works, and a very interesting like social commentary being made there. And it's just such a gut punch. Like it's such a gut punch to like remember, like, and have that like just be like, oh God, that's just like harsh. And I'm not taking like, it's not like shocking in a like shock for the sake of shock, like in a human centipede kind of way, like a sick, gross kind of like thing like that. But it's, there's real emotion, real human emotion in that story. And I've met a lot of people. I've met a lot of women where it's their favorite story. So
really, well, because I was gonna say, for those of you who don't know Meat House Man, basically in far future, this guy goes to this brothel where there's like a woman on the bed, and she's pretty. Is she dead, or is she just like? That's just her job.
The body is alive, but their brains have their brains have been removed, and they have like a machine, puppet machine in there.
Right. And the machine like connects their body, their brain, their psychic to your like brain kinda, and it like meshes. So it's like you have sex with this essentially not lifeless, but like this woman.
Yeah. They call them corpses, like, right. Yeah.
Right, and it's like this perfect like experience for the person engaging in the act. I would imagine like that's just fucking disgusting to women. That's just disgusting. Like, why the fuck?
Well,
But
he
where
thought
men
it
were gross.
right. Well, he thought it was disgusting too once he found out the truth, the character. Because like, so the
Right.
story begins. He's a corpse handler, where they live in this universe where like to do a lot of work, they've got like bodies that are controlled by computers, but the bodies are still there. And so he telepathically is able to like move other bodies into dangerous environments with his mind and have them do the work. So he can have like 5 corpses and he's like telepathically moving them all so they can do more efficient work. And so afterwards, like they go to the whorehouse and, you know, they decide to, you know, he decides to have sex with one of them. And he's thinking that there's a corpse handler on the other end and that he's having sex with a corpse handler. It's just that that person is puppeting the corpse. And then afterwards he gets laughed at and they're like, dude, like it taps into your own subconscious. You were puppeting it. And he's like, oh fuck. Like that's really gross. Like he felt like,
and then he tries to have a normal relationship with like a normal woman, and it's just he can't stop going back to the fucking to the brothel. Like he just
no. He vows at the beginning of the story that he will never go back to the brothel, and then we go through his failed relationships. He has his 2 failed relationships, and then we get back to at the end. He's now back with he's not just having sex with her. He's like puppeting her around as his girlfriend.
Right.
At the end of the story. So he doesn't like, he like swears them off. He swears them off, has 2 bad experiences with real women, and then decides in the end he's just gonna fucking like have his girlfriend.
But I remember specifically him commenting that it's not as good as going to the brothel. I remember that specifically. And of course, like women are not gonna like they're not gonna like that. That's but I mean the whole thing is about like I mean it's really dark and like, but this idea of like when you look for a mate, like there's so many different statements being made. Like when you look for a mate, do you want like a trad wife who's just your puppet, you know, or do you want like a woman with a real brain? And the thing is like when you want a woman with a real brain, like, yeah, there's a lot of baggage. It's hard to fucking deal with another human being who can break your heart, who can have like, who you can get in fights, you can have difficulties with. But like, that's what love is, you know, like it's incredibly difficult. And like but like at the same time being with some like trad wife that you just control, like that's just masturbation. Like there's nothing, that's not a connection with another human being. That's not love, you know? And so like, it's so many like dark, important statements he's making in the story about like, about how hard like love is, but at the same time, like it's the only like engaging with another human being on an equal level that you respect is the only way to deal with the loneliness of life, you know, like, so, I mean, in a sense, it's hard when you read the story, but Meathouse Man is an extremely feminist story. Because you're shrugging off like the woman that you can just control. Like the character obviously chooses the trad wife in the end, who's just masturbation in the end. But like, you know, it was really and failed. He failed to get a real relationship. But like the hope is like for regular people that they find an equal, you know, that they don't just, you know, go to sex workers and yeah. That's such a weird commentary now, considering like how so many women consider themselves to be trad wives, and you don't know if it's like legit or they're just being a pick me. You know, like
they're none of those are legit. Like those people online, I mean, it's a contradiction, right? Like if you're a trad wife, if you're pretending to be a trad wife online and making a bunch of money, you and I know exactly how much work goes into being an influencer, right? That's a career. You're not a trad wife at that point. You're like not you have a career, so you're not that. Like so. It's weird. There's some interesting articles about how people claim they want a trad wife, but actually when you talk to the same people, they also see unworking women as freeloaders. Because remember, conservatives are obsessed with freeloaders and how everybody's a fucking freeloader. And wouldn't I love to sit around all day at home, like doing nothing? And so like they resent and are angry at trad wives anyway. Like, so it's all weird and
yet they want a trad wife, which
they
is weird.
say they want a trad wife, but at the same time when you ask them about trad wives and dealing with them, they think of them as freeloaders because they don't have a job.
In this economy, bro, it's better if both parties are working. Crazy.
That's what I'm saying. So you can't have a trad wife. If a woman has a job, she's not a trad wife. Yeah.
What is not to spoil the conversation, but what was Bookborn's other least favorite?
I don't want to spoil everything, but yeah.
Oh.
I'll
imagine her most favorite is probably A Song for Leah, or at least up there, top 3.
No, that's not it.
Really? Oh.
Anyway. Just read The Four Clever Brothers of Grimm's Fairy Tale. There's a stargazer teacher who uses a glass which allows him to see all in the sky and earth, and nothing can be hidden from you. Oh, interesting. This is the idea of this is the glass candle. Interesting. That this comes from an old German idea. This comes from an old German story. The Grimm brothers were quite interesting, by the way. The brother who's trained by the stargazer uses the glass to find a dragon who captured a princess. What? Gotta find this Grimm's Fairy Tale book about the stargazer. Stargazer and the glass. Four Clever Brothers. Spots are on a rock in the middle of the sea. Thief, a hunter, and tailor. And then they fight over who deserves to marry her. The thief, the hunter, and the tailor. Interesting. Interesting. Was there a thematic point to Nightflyers? Also, what's the worst Thousand Worlds story in your opinion? No Soothlam cop out. The trilogy is one story. Oh, the tough voyaging is what he's saying. Because I might choose something like Loaves and Fishes or something. The thematic point to Nightflyer. The thematic point of Nightflyers is, a big part. I mean, obviously, it's like whatever. As I say, it's a 10 little Indian like horror story, where people are getting picked off. But I would say like a big aspect of it is that the character at the beginning is a genetic supremacist. Like the character is black and she's intentionally black, but she's a racist. She's a supremacist. And by the end of the story, she stops being a supremacist and realizes that she wants to like care for Royd. And so there is a bit of like discovering of there, she does have some growth there where she like, stops being a racist by the end of the story. I don't know if that's the full theme. I mean, the theme that like stories, there's also the idea that like everybody's stories are kind of wrong. Like everybody can have tales, but they're all pretty much wrong because it turns out in the end like the Vulcan is something else. But one thematic thing for the whole story. Um, mm, I mean, I guess there's just a lot. I mean, I would not say that there's one single thematic point. It's just kind of like I'm trying to think if there's anything like, I mean, like animals and stuff are like things that we can't imagine. The universe is more different than we thought. The idea that the big creature is using telekinesis to project itself through the through the galaxy is weird, and we can't imagine it. But I'm trying to think about like Royd and like watching everyone and how that relates to anything. I don't know. I don't think there is necessarily a unified thematic point in Night Flyers. I don't think it's one of George R. Martin's strongest stories. I think it's actually kind of one of his weakest. But like, strangely, it's the one that like made him some money, and like, we wouldn't have Ice and Fire without it. Strangely enough, but if I were to pick the worst Thousand Worlds story, I mean, so when I made the list of the Thousand Worlds, I included the Corpse Handler trilogy in it because of mentioning a few worlds. But some people pointed out that those worlds are kind of mentioned in a lot of general sci-fi. But I think Nobody Leaves New Pittsburgh is one of the worst stories in there. I think that's pretty bad. The ones I really don't like, I don't like Warship. I think Warship is when George has like one single idea about a story, and it's just like that's it, and it's not that clever of an idea. I kind of like feel disappointed at the end. So like Warship is a story about this ship keeps attacking the crew and they don't know why, and they keep trying to fight back against it. And it turns out like the warship had an AI, and the AI determined that the crew were like a virus, and that it needed to kill off like the people inside as like a virus. And that's it. And it's like, well, it's not that really that clever of an idea. Like that an AI thinks people are viruses. I mean, this is the plot of the Matrix and all sorts of things. I mean, this million sci-fi stories kind of have this idea that like, oh, the AI starts seeing humans as a threat. So I'm just like I don't think Warship is a very like clever idea. I don't think Runners is very good. Runners just kind of has one little idea that like that we keep ourselves busy to try to make life seem worth living, and so what if you take that to the extreme? I don't think it's a great story. And George R. Martin claims he wrote it in one day, but that's hard to believe. But nonetheless, it's not great. Yeah, those are my least favorite. Would probably be like Warship and the Runners. And yeah, like Nobody Leaves New Pittsburgh, I think is a real stinker.
Nobody Leaves New Pittsburgh. I might try that one next, just to see. Let me see here. Do I even have that one? I don't even think I have that one here.
I can get it to you. I can give it to you, but it's yeah.
Is that a short story?
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck? It's not here.
Almost everything George wrote is a short story. I mean, other than Ice and Fire, Fever Dream, Dying of the Light, Armageddon Rag. And he wrote like a quarter of a novel called Black and White and Red All Over.
I don't. What the fuck? I don't have that. Nightflyer, Sand Kings, Armageddon Rag, Ice Dragons can trade. Tough Voyaging, Windhaven. I don't have Nobody Leaves New Pittsburgh.
I can go to
What?
TC. Yeah.
This George R. R. Martin collection I thought I had is not complete. Fuck. Rogues.
Yeah. A doubt for the future with Garlan taking the white. Couldn't Alekine Florent use the advantage to retake Brightwater? Also, what's up with all the cousins? So when I originally came up with the idea that like Garlan Tyrell would take the white, the idea is he never has achieved taking Brightwater. Brightwater, like he never had time. He was going to take Brightwater and then the Shield Islands thing came. And so like I was thinking about that, like, okay, well that means we can keep the castle in there, like at Brightwater. But then people pointed out that like, okay, it starts getting complicated to have Garland take the white. Like then his wife has to join the Silent Sisters. And it's like, okay, you could have her join the Silent Sisters and then quit the Silent Sisters and then have that be a, you know, equivalent to people joining and leaving the Kingsguard. Or you could try Parman Crane, who like was part of the Rainbow Guard and who was he's in prison at Highgarden, so they could bring him and have him join. But then like, why would Parman Crane, a guy who like switched to Stannis, why would they trust him to necessarily fight for the Tyrells? So I mean, I feel like some knight, maybe neither is a very good choice. I don't know. But the point is that just some knight is going to be there to fight for Marjorie. You know, and it's got to be like an incredible knight. But yeah, so I don't know about like Parman. Like obviously Garland is an incredible fighter, but like it gets complicated, like having his wife join the Silent Sisters and then quit the Silent Sisters and come back. So Parman defects to Stannis. Oh, after he joins Renly and then defects to Stannis. And so and after being captured by Loras. So like he's not the best. He's not the best either. So I don't know. We gotta choose. Gotta find somebody. But you know, a good knight of some sort. But originally I was thinking about the Brightwater Keep situation. Like he had never taken it. He only is the Lord of Brightwater Keep on paper. I want to say Colin Florent is still the castellan there. And, you know, so, you know, the idea is that like he could join, like I was thinking about like the eventual conquest or eventual holdings of like Cersei and in Euron. And it's like, well, Colin Florent is sitting there being like, fuck, like who should I side with? If Cersei is going to offer me Brightwater Keep, you know, I would stay with her or whatever. Or you could go out another way and say, okay, Colin Florent might join. It's an easy way to have him just join Aegon too. Like, he's like, fuck all these people. I'm going to join. If Aegon's the only one that's going to like, let me keep my keep. So that's what I was thinking about by removing Garland from that area. But I don't know. Is it too much to have his wife join the Silent Sisters and then quit the Silent Sisters, or plan to quit the Silent Sisters? I mean, it could be one line, because originally the line, I was going to have a line like, you know, Garlan Tyrell joined the Kingsguard, but you know, right after Cersei was fairly certain that like right after the trial he would hang up he would leave, just like and reclaim Brightwater Keep and reclaim his wife. I mean, it could be done in one line. It's whether or not like people think it's too much for a character to join the Kingsguard, have his wife join the Silent Sisters, and then have both of them quit the minute the trial is over. Or maybe that's just what Tyrells would do. You know, like, fuck it, we're gonna play the system.
Maxwell has a good point here. Why doesn't Marjorie just have Robert Strong fight for her, convince Tommen to command it?
That's true. Maybe. I mean, at that point, I mean, that's kind of funny because then you could take it the other way and be like, Robert, knowing that Marjorie is the enemy, allows himself to be killed just so that Marjorie would die. It would be like a fucking crazy, right? Because that's what he would do, right? He would allow himself to be killed.
That. Well, you got to do something like that for the fanfic. Have you decided like what Robert Strong like is or how that came about for the fanfic?
Well, I was kind of playing with the idea. So, did you listen to the chapter call?
No, I haven't. I didn't even get a notification about it. You put it out already?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Shit.
So we leave it a bit of a mystery, but I'm certainly open to the idea of like somebody later being like, yeah, no, that dude was just he was just Robert. He was just Robert Strong. He was actually just a dude. Like that he wasn't actually Gregor Clegane at all. Like I think that's a pretty funny idea that like all of this time you're thinking it's Gregor Clegane, and then it's actually no, his name's Robert Strong. And you're like, what? Where's Gregor Clegane? Yeah, he died.
That's great. I like that.
I know. I mean, so those are the three ideas. The three ideas I have is like, okay, obviously there's people that think that he's a fucking magical fire wight and that he's undead. All right. That's where a lot of people are. And then there's the idea that like he's the mountain, but he's had kidney failure, which is why, and like he's gets dialysis, like he's getting blood transfusions, which is why Qyburn was like taking people because he needed their blood for blood transfusions. And he doesn't go to he's also got screwed up system where he doesn't visit the privy and he's crapping into a colostomy bag and all sorts of other shit. Like, so there's that, like that modern science actually can explain what's going on, that like by getting stabbed with all that poison, his kidneys shut down. And so he's getting blood transfusions to deal with the fact that he doesn't have kidneys, and he's crapping into a colostomy bag because everything's fucked up down there. But then, like, does that make him a good fighter? He'd probably just fucking fall apart. But he's strong enough to carry Cersei. So, there's this idea that there's a legitimate reason he's alive, like a scientific reason he's alive. And then there's just like, no, he's just a big guy named Robert Strong. Like that's just.
What about the people who say like they never see him consume food or drink? I think at one point even Kevin thinks to himself that like he doesn't even know if he's alive.
Oh yeah, like he doesn't eat. Well, no one's ever seen it. Doesn't mean he doesn't do it.
Sure.
I mean, I've never seen you, like Carmine. I've never seen you eat any food. Just put it that way. I've never seen you use the privy.
Sure. Sure. Okay. I guess. So you're not a fan of the gravedigger theory. That's not.
I mean, you know, what Sandor? Sandor is the gravedigger. Sure.
Yeah, but that Sandor and the mountain will eventually come together and fight.
That's stupid. Sandor has a fine ending. I don't need any. I don't need any reason to pull Sandor out of a fairly good ending for him.
That's fair.
Like he's living in peace on the Quiet Isle. Like let him live in peace on the Quiet Isle. Like there's no need to pull him out of that just to like have him killed. Like he has an ending. Like, and it's a pretty good one. Let's just leave it. Like I don't have any need to bring the Hound back into the story. Like his story is done. It's a nice ending. He gets to live on the Quiet Isle.
I guess that answers that. There it is. I guess that answers that.
He doesn't submit to like kinslaying, and like he was obsessed with killing his brother. You want me to pull him out of that and go on and kill his brother? Like, Why? Like, leave him on the fucking quiet aisle. Did George come up with the Night King story to tease diplomacy communication between the others in the Westeros in the third act of the story? You know, that was, if not why. I definitely, for a long time, like held the idea that there was some serious problem. So George R. R. Martin has a story called Dark, Dark Were the Tunnels, where people on Earth are I'm sorry, there's been a nuclear war, and the humans on the moon are the only ones that really survived. And you do find out that like also there's a subterranean like mutant human population. And the people on the moon come down because the radiation is finally clearing to explore to see if any humans survived. And then the people are talking about how they're in a technological bottleneck, they're in bureaucracy, they need new ideas. They're having problems with population growth because there's not enough genetic diversity, which is a real scientific thing that happens. Like you're with population bottlenecks when they get too small. Like you don't have enough genetic diversity to produce more than replacement rate of or less of offspring. Meanwhile, the subterranean people are also dealing with problems. There's like these worms coming in, killing them, and they need some help dealing with these worms. So it's very clear that all that needs to happen is for the moon people and the subterranean people to get together, breed, share technology, and humanity can survive. But instead, the characters end up killing each other, and it's a disaster, right? So it's a sad ending. But it's like I thought of this kind of the same thing, like, what if the others were in a population bottleneck and that's why they've been like asking for children, but the children are all inbred because they're from Craster and like shit like that. And I was like down this like thread of like Dark Were the Tunnels. Like, is it the same situation where like the others and the humans just need to like fucking talk to each other? Like, why are the humans stuck in the Middle Ages for fucking thousands of years? And so, but, then in the end, like, I don't know, people, are the others just global warming and we're fighting amongst ourselves while global warming is going to kill us off, The show definitely portrayed it like that like the others represent death and this problem that we're all fighting amongst ourselves over. And, we need nothing beats a great story, is the answer. To stave off the others, because so I definitely had that idea for a long time. But if you're going with the show, and the show does what George's idea was, that it rings a little bit of George, the nothing beats a great story ending, which like I say, sounds like George, but isn't a very satisfying ending. I'm reading Dune prequel books, and Kevin J. Anderson could be a good choice to help George R. R. Martin finish A Song of Ice and Fire. Saga of Seven Sons also echoes A Thousand Worlds. Yeah, I interviewed Kevin J. Anderson once a number of years ago. He's an incredible dude in like his ability to write. Like, he and just being able to produce. So the guy goes on walks and dictates his stories while he's hiking. And then his like secretary like writes everything down. And then he goes from there. But he just like stream of consciousness while walking, like can like spit out a novel, which is amazing. The guy, like, I couldn't imagine doing something like that. He's a super, super smart, bright guy. He is. His writing style is very different from George, though. Like, and it's not like Kevin J. Anderson is really, really smart, and he will put in the research. He will put in the time. Like he learned every motherfucking thing about Dune. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, we had a very detailed discussion, and he has it all down. Like, he knows every little bit of lore. He's a really intelligent guy, really hard worker, and can just fucking write, can just spit something out. He can spit out a fucking book in a month. Incredible. But it's not George's writing style. It's not George's writing style. And I don't know if you could take somebody like that, a guy whose mind works a million miles a minute. And that's the thing, I was like talking to him, and he was just million miles a minute kind of guy. And gifted gab too. Could he sit down like and just like slog and make it sound like George and just go through, like, I don't know.
You kind of answered that already, though, right? Because in order for him to write Dune, he sat down and learned everything he could about Dune.
It's true, and you're right, Carmine. You're absolutely right, because the sequel and prequel books are not in the same writing style as Frank Herbert, and everybody comments on that they're just not in the same writing style. Yeah.
Well, the Dune show we're getting now, the prequel from HBO, isn't that based off Kevin J. Anderson and Frank Herbert's son stuff?
Mm-hmm.
It's not bad, but what's funny about what you're saying is that, like, your editor, he makes it sound very George R. R. Martin-esque. So it is possible. It is actually possible, but, you know, we've already had this conversation several times. George does not want anyone to touch it.
Well, yeah, no, there's a million ways to do it. I mean, it's certainly possible if you had like like I say, you get an editor to mimic the writing style, and you get a writer to like pop it out on the first draft or whatever, who knows all the lore, and you know, you produce it that way. It's not impossible. Like I say, I mean, you know, we're essentially doing that, but as a bunch of amateurs, you know, professionals could obviously do it with incredible, with speed, you know, so professionals.
This is actually, I hate to, cause I know you probably have to go soon. This is actually a possibility that Elio brought up in my conversation with him. I don't know if it was in part one, which you heard part one, right?
Yeah, I remember discussions of that. Yeah.
Elio said
Elio didn't want to be part of anything like that
because he wants to respect George's wishes.
Yeah, he also doesn't feel like if it's not from George, he just doesn't believe it's the thing. He could say it could be the most incredible thing ever that he's ever written, but if it's not from George, it's not from George. That was his point.
Elio brought the idea that if something did happen to George, that, you know, whoever is in charge of the estate could bring in another writer to do it. But yeah, exactly. He would not be a part of it. Even if they asked him, he would say no per George's wishes.
Yeah.
And that'd be that.
Yeah. 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 And I believe him in every respect. Like, having talked to Elio, like he's a man who has certain beliefs, and that's a big part of it. Yeah. Will Melisandre fulfill Jon's plan to build glass garden at Castle Black? It's such a strange idea that Jon weirdly elaborates some details on. It is. There's just no time. I mean, even Jon is like, we need to bring in glass from like Mere and have like greenhouses and stuff like that. It's and you know, some people are like, oh, maybe this is George put that in to try to deal with the lemon tree. And it's like, no, we didn't. Because also, like, his description, like, talks about it pumping in hot air from in Winterfell and things like that. And so it's a bit contradictory, because, like I say, he wants it to be like Winterfell, but Winterfell has geothermic fed like greenhouses, like, to warm them at the same time as getting light. They don't have that at the Wall. So I don't know what Jon's thinking. It's just a weird thing where I just feel like maybe George was filling space. But yeah, there's just no time to bring in like glass and everything.
Really, that because the way what I took from that was Game of Thrones did it very poorly with Sansa towards the end, like how
Mhm.
Sansa is trying to like take charge and like this armor, make sure it has padding in it. It's like
Right.
whatever. It to me when I read it, it was more like, oh, Jon is like planning for the future. He's like,
Yeah,
just
like you're saying it's like color that shows that Jon is somebody that like thinks outside the box, right?
right. That's how I took it.
Yeah. Glass, Jon mused, might be of use here. Castle Black needs its own glass gardens, like the ones at Winterfell. He could grow vegetables even in the deep of winter. The best glass came from Mere, but a good clear pane was worth its weight in spice, and green and yellow glass would not work as well. What we need is gold. With enough coin, we could buy prentice glassblowers and glazers and Mere, bring them north, offer them their freedom and teaching them arts to some of our recruits. That would be the way to go about it if we had the gold, which we do not. But also keep in mind that that's Jon 7, which is that's like the heart of like George's writer's block time. Like is around there. He kind of, let's see here. I'm trying to get the exact because it's I mean, maybe you could argue that maybe it was right after because Melisandre is writing the Melisandre chapter is what breaks him out. So maybe you could argue that he was just coming out of it at that point, but it's hard to say how far he got with Jon. But yeah, it's a lot of meandering. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right that it's there to try to show Jon as like outside the box planner, good, but it also contradicts what we know about the greenhouses from Winterfell too, because he's not talking about the geothermic warm air. Follow your logic. What could 15-year-old Robb have said to his bannermen as they roared, "King of the Noin," to refuse them without offense? Yeah, that's joke. That's funny. That King of the Noin instead of King of the North. Yeah, I mean, this is the big problem with him giving so much power to idiots like Great John Umber, because it is Great John Umber's fault. Like you could say, like who destroyed Robb more, like Roose Bolton or Great John Umber in this sense. But yeah, it was one of the dumbest moves was Robb declaring himself king of the North rather than just submitting and kneeling to Stannis or Renly, because it wasn't what he wanted. It wasn't what he wanted. Okay. Got to Preston Carmine. We have our front row seats for the play. Oh man, already bought. The tickets go on sale, Carmine? Is that what Gail's saying, that he's already got them?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Google Glassing it and everything.
I'm already sending somebody.
How did Stannis give Davos lands when he was never Lord? Only Robert Renly could do that. Why wouldn't they? If Stannis asked, they'd actually did it. Yeah, I mean, that's it. I suppose Stannis asked them. I guess Stannis asked a favor. Yeah. I mean, the only other explanation, I mean, this is a bad explanation, but the only other explanation I can think of is that for some reason, specifically his Rainwood lands were under Dragonstone. Like that Robert was like, look, I'm giving you Dragonstone, but I'm giving you a few other lands like Massey's Hook and the Rainwood or something, and a little bit of the Rainwood. It's not a very good explanation. but that's the only other one that would work. Let me pull up. So here's the map of the South, right? So the Rainwood is here on the tip of Cape Wrath. So Tarth is under Stannis's control. Massey's Hook is under Stannis's control. Is the Estermont? Is Estermont? Do they go to? Estermont declares for Renly, so that's shitty. But one could argue that maybe there's just like in the same way that Massey's Hook is given to Dragonstone and Tarth is given to Dragonstone, that maybe you could argue that some of the Rainwood was also given to Stannis randomly. It is strange. It is strange, like that they give him the like pieces of the Rainwood rather than like I gave you like a little bit of the Velaryon lands or something, or a little bit of Dragonstone. I give you a fief on Dragonstone or something. But you are right that it's a really, really weird. And now we've got to imagine Stannis being like, I want to give Davos Seaworth some lands. Can I have them? Okay, fine. Let's okay. Thanks, Renly. Thanks, Robert. It's like a weird request. Huh. Recently saw Mike Miller's cover for She-Wolves all the way when pick it up. Is there hope for it? Mike S. Miller did a cover for She-Wolves of Winterfell? I would love to see a picture of this. But is there hope for She-Wolves? I don't know. I mean, if Village Hero comes out, then I'll be like, maybe there's a chance that George has gotten into his but I put the chances of She-Wolves pretty low. I think I think it's pretty low that George is going to write anything. But if he's going to write something, I hope it's Village Hero, the next one. Oh my God! Please, sir, fill us in on Clone Wars experience. First season is rough but full of heart. I like Ryloth arc and the Trailheads live. Have you watched where they return to Geonosis? Here's the thing: is I wasn't watching it with him, so like. I was, I'm kind of only aware of various things in the background. So like I was aware he was watching like the original Bad Batch episode. So I vaguely now know what the Bad Batch is. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of a clever idea. And so I understand now why there was a Bad Batch show. Only because I was like in the background, he had been watching the Bad Batch episode. So like I kind of like was like vaguely aware of like what was going on. But I didn't watch all of it. Like he would start asking me questions about it. So I've like picked up some of the plot from him asking me questions. Like I understand that like there's some episodes where Ahsoka like escorts Padme places. And it's funny, like my son, because he's like, Daddy, who does Anakin like better, Ahsoka or Padme? And I'm like, Padme, of course. Like, of course he likes Padme more. I don't even know if he likes Ahsoka at all. But stuff like that. Carmine, you've seen all Clone Wars, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You think it's all pretty good. Well, you have, I think, a more emotional connection to it.
No, I don't actually. I have more emotional connection to the... Yeah, dude, but this is something I had to explain to the Avatar Last Airbender people. That stuff came out around 06, 07, 08. I was done.
Too old.
With like a little bit, yeah. I still watched it. It's Star Wars. It was fine. I'm more in touch with the Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars cartoon from
I understand.
From 02, 03. That was way better.
The whole thing kind of like... It seems weird to me that there is so much Clone Wars content, that they made so many fucking episodes, because you're just like, all this shit happened to them in between the second and third movie. Like, This is a lot of shit. Like meeting gods and like having a Padawan that's never mentioned and fucking that's never mentioned in Revenge of the Sith. Like all this shit happens. So I'm sure some episodes are good and whatever, but it's a lot.
This was back when making 24 episodes of something was cheap as fuck and you could do it. Because nowadays you can barely get like 10 episodes of anything. Holy fuck.
Yeah. It's also daunting. You're just like, oh my God, there's so much fucking Clone Wars to watch. Like I cannot get through that all. Like if it were something like 3 seasons, 10 episodes, maybe I'd be like, maybe, but it's just not.
It's too much.
Yeah. When are you going to start doing Fourth Wing theory crafting? What's Fourth Wing?
It's this, it's like this romancy dragon fantasy book from this woman.
I think I know what you're talking about. It's people have been talking about it. I think I've read an article that it was like a more sexually charged, like Ice and Fire, and I'm like, Ice and Fire is already sexually charged. Like what?
What the fuck? It's so funny nowadays, like how people put these articles out, like, and they use these like code words, like gotcha, get you to read this, because no one would fucking click on that article if they didn't put Ice and Fire or Game of Thrones in the title. Yeah. But sorry, Retired Devil, who's a nice guy. I have no interest in Fourth Wing. Even if they paid me to watch
saying it mostly as a joke. If Robert has kidney failure, could he not shit himself dunk style right mid-fight? Recently read for a single yesterday. Could time traveling Bran develop a weirwood paste addiction? Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I don't want to like really conflate like the colostomy bag with like dialysis and stuff like that. But, you know, I totally did have this idea that like Robert goes into the fight and then he just fucking falls over because he's got all these fucking bags and tubes dealing with the fact that he's had kidney failure and he would lose the fight. But then you've got to kill Cersei or deal with her like, you know, escaping the same way Tyrion did. You know, so I don't know. That was the thing. For a single yesterday, that's another one that Bookborn and I will definitely be talking about. For a single yesterday is, of course, it's an interesting maybe time travel story. You know, it's mysterious, it's ambiguous, but it's about a post-apocalyptic world where they find this drug that allows people to like really intensely go back into their memories. And so they're like hoping that it's a way to like go back and find technology that they can use. But the one guy using it is like, no, dude, it's actual time travel. I was back there. And he would waste all his time like reliving his time with his like dead girlfriend. And they're like, no, man, like it's just a memory drug. And so in the end, the guy overdoses on it. or he like figures that the only way to stay in the past is to kill yourself while you do your time trip, which is very under siege as well. So there, and then it kind of seems like then the colony they live in changes, and it's beautifully ambiguous because it's like, did the colony change because they got rid of this fucking sad sack over nostalgic piece of shit and they're moving on with their lives? Or is the colony changing because he actually did go back in time and time travel and change things? There's this bit of ambiguity at the end. It's a really mysterious story where he's the George R. Martin in that one is thematically comparing nostalgia with heroin. And he's saying nostalgia, yeah, it feels great and all, but it actually is holding us back, and fuck it. Like, you know, like it's interesting. So it's an interesting story. I'm glad we're going to be talking about it. But anyway, we are to the end. Bad Batch episodes are in season 7, so he's done with the show or watching out of order. It was just like maybe there's like a single one-off Bad Batch where they like introduce the Bad Batch.
What he's talking about is if you're apparently the entirety of the Clone Wars are out of order, canonically.
Okay.
So you'd have to go to like the website to watch it. Like the first episode, I think, is like a season 3 episode or some shit.
That's what I think he saw. Like the first one in the season 3, and then maybe more. There's more Bad Batch episodes later. But this was like a single one-off episode about the Bad Batch.
Actually, Preston, I will say this to you specifically, since personally, I think this is a fucking phenomenal time to be watching TV, especially for superheroes, because you have The Boys, Invincible, Daredevil. There's a new Star Wars show out, Maul.
Yeah.
It's gotten rave reviews, like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Give it a shot. I think
we're gonna find out Maul's real name. It's like the only one still going around with like his Darth name for no reason. I mean, the reason is because the fans like know him as Darth Maul, and we don't know him as anything else. But like, he's the only one that walks around with his fucking Darth name.
Honestly, I'm kind of sick of like Clone Wars legacy characters. Let's move on to like the sequel era and try to fix it at least, because Jesus Christ, let's move on.
Yeah. But also it's hard to care because like, okay, you brought Maul back, but I know he's gonna die again. Like, and I know how he dies. So like, how am I supposed to care about Maul when like I know he's just gonna die?
They're trying to connect. They're trying to give him like purpose post Clone Wars stuff. It's whatever. It's silly. It's stupid.
But he's just gonna fucking die in the desert again.
I know. It's
like it's like hey, Obi-Wan kills him. You brought him back so Obi-Wan could kill him.
I hope it's not some bullshit where they like try to God, I fucking hate when they do this. Where they try to resurrect him at the end of this, like. Actually, he survived that Obi-Wan duel.
Ugh. Hello, quick question. Who is sending Daenys her dreams? Any plans to coup Peter in the fanfic Royce Sorkin style trial? Thanks. Listening to backlog while delivering the mail. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of like where the Elaine story is going to be going is, of course, like trying to get a hold of the Riverlands first. Like they have to get a hold of everything before a lot of these coups and fights can go on, because they have a lot of enemies here. Like the Freys, they're going to be siding with half the Freys, and then the other Freys are going to be fighting against them, and they still. Then they have to be able to conquer the Riverlands. So like having it fall apart within is going to be hard. Cause there's so much stuff to do with them and there's so little time, like keep in mind, like how many more Elaine chapters are there going to be in the fanfic? Like 2, like how much time is there? And the idea is like to march people towards Harrenhal with Elaine. It's, keep in mind there's things like Sweet Robin has to legitimize Elaine and things like that. There's other plot points that need to happen. There's characters. I mean, the Blackfish needs attention and things like that. So we will see. We will see. But plus we got the fucking all those sister men and their Blackfyre connections, and it's a lot. It's a lot. So we will see. I haven't actually put much. I mean, I kind of generally know, like, okay, they've got to start conquering the Riverlands, but like, what specific problems are they going to have, or what are they going to be doing? Haven't thought that through too much. But back on Daenys the Dreamer, man, it's tough when it's like, okay, obviously time traveling Bran, it's before Bran is born. So who could be sending Daenys the Dreamer stuff? Are there are the werewood, is somebody in the werewood at that point? Like, are the Children of the Forest active at that point? Or does she even have dreams? Maybe they sabotaged Valyria, and she never had any dreams, and like it was the Targaryens like sabotaged them all so they could just escape, or something, and killed them all. It's hard to say, it happens. We know so little, and it happened so long ago, that it could have been anything. Maybe she didn't really have a dream. Maybe she was down there and she's like, these are really unsafe living standards that the working standards you're doing with your mining. There's going to be a big, massive accident. And so they left, and why'd the Valarians leave? Why'd the Celtigars leave? Like, what's going on? What's up with that? What's up with airline food? So I think there's a lot of other questions to think about like that. But I mean, people would love to make it simple and just be like, well, Bran can time travel to any time. But I don't think that logically makes sense. But we'll see. I don't know. I'm gonna try to reveal the full Knight's Vows sometime, but we'll see. It'd be interesting with Zalbar. The Jalabard Zoe, but so Carmine, it's pretty late. I gotta head to bed. Any last things before I finish up?
No, that's pretty much about it.
Thank you for chilling with me. Thank you for everybody for hanging out. And I'll talk to you guys later.